पुन्हा आर्थिक सर्वेक्षण में आप देखेंगे कि जिस तरह से महंगाई दर रही है, ये एक्सपेक्टेशंस जो है वो काबू में और कंट्रोल करने में सरकार और जो आरबीआई है वो सक्षम है और करेंगे ऐसा। तो आशा यही की जा रही है कि जिस तरह से पिछले सालों में इन्फ्लेशन जो है उसको कंट्रोल में रखा गया है सरकार के द्वारा, वैसे
किरसान सर, आप डेल यूज कर रहे हैं क्या? डेल वाला लैपटॉप यूज करके किरसान सर?
नहीं सर, लिनोवो का है।
नहीं, आपका इमेज मेरे को क्लियर नहीं दिखाई दे रहा है। आप या तो आपका चेहरा कट के आ रहा है मुझे।
Good morning, Dr. Panika.
Sir, good morning. Very good morning, sir.
Morning, good morning.
Yeah. Welcome, sir.
Same to you, thank you.
Trivedi, sir, good morning.
Good morning, Panikar sir.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, Trivedi sir.
Good morning.
सारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स के फोटोज अगर देखना है तो पूरा स्क्रीन पे वो भी आता है क्या? मोर
मेरे ख्याल से त्रिवेदी सर का वीडियो चालू नहीं हुआ है।
Dr. Shyam, Dr. sir, good morning.
हाँ सर वेरी गुड मॉर्निंग।
तो एक काम कर, पटकन जाऊंगा आमचे प्रिन्सिपल आलेले आहेत घरी दिसते का?
Mahajan madam, I think our resource persons have joined us. I can see Dr. Loz Ju is with us.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning. I'm here, sir. No problem.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. Very good morning, sir. Welcome.
प्रफुल्ला जी, गुड मॉर्निंग। आपको काफी टाइम के बाद मिल रहा है ऑनलाइन भी।
Good morning, sir. Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you are very much audible.
Okay, sir. Okay.
If you are ready, do let me know.
Yes, sir. Yes. Dr. Ramanujan, sir, is to join.
हेलो
Yeah, Trivedi sir.
एक थोड़ा चावल में लगा देना।
Kirsan sir, can you please stop sharing the screen?
Hello.
Kirsan sir, can you please stop sharing the screen?
कहाँ पर है? अंदर?
डॉक्टर नागपूरकर सर.
Hello, madam. Good morning.
मित्रामधून रे पोरीला म्हणा एवढं नका का माहित नाही बस काय करू अरे गाव म्हणतेस का रे आणणार रे चल नाही करू दे त्याच्या हातात करू दे बोले उलटाच मी जशी साडी नाही हा पदरच झाला नाही तेच तर झालं उलट झालं खालचा
इंगन जोडे
म्यूट करो.
तो नाही का इकडे पाहिजे होता खालचा खालचा तो इकडे पाहिजे होता या बाजूला कसं पाहिजे होता उभे होऊन जा उभे होऊन
हाँ समझ रहे हैं, वो हम उस दिन भी देखे थे, वो बीच से हट गया है, ज्यादा मत तो खराब तो बाद में देखा जाएगा। अभी अभी करने जा रही है क्या? हेलो
नागपूरकर सर. हॅलो.
हेलो सर.
नागपूरकर सगळे गेस्ट आणि रिसोर्स पर्सन जॉईन झाले का सर?
हाँ जोश लुईस साहेब जॉईन झालेले आहेत. आणि डॉक्टर सुरेश कुमार त्यांचं लेक्चर नंतर आहे. तर ते होतील ना नंतर.
चीफ गेस्ट जॉईन झाले का चीफ गेस्ट सर?
मॅडम करत आहे त्यांना.
सर गुड मॉर्निंग.
जॉईन व्हायचे आहेत आपले पार्टिसिपंट 90 वर गेलेले असल्यामुळे ते जॉईन होऊ शकत नव्हते. चीफ गेस्ट जॉईन व्हायचे आहेत.
हा तर आता करू शकतात ना ते जॉईन. आता 99 आहे 95 पार्टिसिपंट दिसतात आहे.
हाँ सर, फोन केलाय त्यांना, करतात आहे ते.
सर जॉइन हो गए रामानुजन सर.
सर shall I start?
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean, if you are ready, you can start. I suppose.
No, the chief guest of the program is yet to join. Please wait for a moment.
No, Ramanujan sir has joined us.
I joined now. Yes. You can start now.
Okay sir, okay.
I mean, can we just check his audio first?
Okay, sure.
Ramanujan sir, am I audible to you?
यहाँ पे मेरा देख नहीं रहा अभी.
Ramanujan sir.
मेरा भी.
हाँ वहाँ से चेंज करो. स्पीकर करो.
नागपूरकर सर रामानुजन सर जॉइन झाले का बघा बरं.
ओके.
हाँ जॉइन हो गए हैं. He is very much there.
नहीं, नागपुरकर सर आप उनसे थोड़ा बात कर लीजिए फोन पे.
नहीं, I can see him here.
सर जॉइन हो गए हैं.
ऑडियो शायद उन्होंने म्यूट करके रखा होगा.
But we need to check his audio first.
Yeah.
मणिकंदर सर को देखो. दिखता नहीं है पूरा. आता है.
त्रिवेदी सर, आप अपना मोबाइल हॉरिजॉन्टल रखिए. त्रिवेदी सर, am I audible to you?
Yes.
आप अपना मोबाइल जो है और उसको हॉरिजॉन्टल रखिए सर.
Right.
Yes sir, this is much better now. Nagpurkar sir, can we start? Nagpur sir, can we start?
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, can we start, sir?
Okay,
Yes, sir,
okay,
you're audible.
okay, you can start. Start, please.
Mahajan madam, you can start now.
Sir, Ramanujan sir is facing some problem in joining. Again, he is saying that there is a participant list has reached maximum time. I am talking to him. Huh, sir.
No, there is sufficient space right now.
Yes, I am telling him. Sir, 95%.
There are sufficient slots available. And I did admit him, in fact.
सर आप किस नाम से ज्वाइन हो रहे थे? ओके हेलो. हाँ.
Yes, now sir has joined.
Okay.
Ramanujam sir has joined us. Ramanujan sir, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Very good morning to you also.
Yeah.
Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Sorry,
Good
there was some
morning, sir.
problem. I couldn't join in spite of I trying my level best. Just now only I could join. Sorry for getting delayed because of me.
Okay, sir, no problem. Good morning, sir.
Morning, ma'am.
Sir, shall I start
Madam,
now?
now you can
Good
start.
morning,
as a-
sir. Good morning. Good morning, all.
Good morning, sir.
Dr. Mahajan, you can start now.
Okay, sir. Okay. A very good morning to one and all. On behalf of organizing committee, I, Dr. Veena Mahajan, convener and head, Department of Zoology, J.M. Patel Art, Commerce and Science College, Bhandara, welcome you all in today's National E-Conference on Wildlife Conservation in India, a Sustainable Approach, jointly organized by Department of Zoology of J.M. Patel Art, Commerce and Science College, Bhandara, M.B. Patel Art, Commerce and Science College, Sakoli, SN More Art, Commerce and Srimati G.D. Saraf Science College, Tumsar, in collaboration with Wildlife Trust of India and Invocare Nature Club under DBT Star College scheme of J.M. Patel College, Bhandara. Today, we have with us our distinguishing guest. So it's my proud privilege to welcome our chief guest and keynote speaker, Honorable Mr. Manikanda Ramanujam, sir, IFS, Conservator and Field Director, Nagzira Navegaon Tiger Reserve, Gondia, Dr. V.P. Dhomne, Principal, J.M. Patel Arts, Commerce and Science College, Bhandara, Dr. Harish Trivedi, Principal, M.B. Patel College, Sakoli, Dr. Chetan Masram, Principal, SN More College, Tumsar, Mr. Jose Luis, Deputy Director and Chief Wildlife Crime Control Division, WTI, New Delhi, Dr. Suresh Kumar, Scientist E, Wildlife Institute of India, Dehradun, Dr. Mohammad Firoz Ahmed, Scientist F, Head, TRCD and HRCD, Aranyak, Guwahati, Assam, India, Dr. Azaz Hussain, Project Scientist, Protected Area Boundary, Ladakh, India, Mr. Prafulla Bamburkar, Coordinator, Central India Tiger Corridor Securement Project, Wildlife Trust of India, Professor Dr. C.J. Khune, Joint Secretary, Head, Department of Zoology, M.B. Patel College, Sakoli, Dr. L.P. Nagpurkar, Organizing Secretary, Program Officer, Invocare Nature Club, Dr. M.F. Jadhav, Co-Convener, Head, Department of Zoology, SN More College, Tumsar, Dr. Karthik Panikar, IQSC Coordinator, J.M. Patel College, Bhandara, Dr. Sham Dafre, Coordinator, DBT Star College Scheme, J.M. Patel College, Bhandara, Dr. Mahendra Raut, Field Officer, Invocare Nature Club, all the office bearers of Wildlife Trust of India and Invocare Nature Club, all the heads of the departments, academicians, faculty, research scholars, and my dear students, it gives me an immense pleasure to extend a warm welcome to all of you. At the outset, I would just like to give some information about our J.M. Patel College, Bhandara. After making a modest beginning in 1964, now today our institution is one of the premier seat of learning institution in the Vidarbha region. Our college is awarded with potential for excellence for the second term and is recognized as Center for Higher Learning and Research Center. Recently, the college has been awarded the DBT Star College Scheme by Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India, New Delhi. As India is said to be one of the world's richest country in terms of the biological diversity, it has more than 8% of the total number of species in the world, that is estimated to be 1.6 million. Conservation is necessary to preserve the ecological diversity and our life support systems such as air, water, and soil. The central government has also come up with the different projects for protecting specific animals, which were gravely threatened, including the tiger, the one-horned rhinoceros, and others. There are already undesirable evidences that animals, birds, and plants are affected by climate change. and global warming in both their distribution and behaviors. Conservation challenges in the landscape, including poaching and their prey, human-wildlife conflicts, development of linear infrastructure. This conference is aimed to cultivate ecological and conservation literacy to reduce the human threats, participatory mitigation measures for human-wildlife conflict, enhancement of protection measures, awareness, raising of local communities towards habitat management and protection, which is a major perspective. So it will facilitate opportunities for constructive dialogues and to inspire by the deliberation of the genius speakers their works to explore where and how the landscape can accommodate India's need for infrastructure without harming crucial habitat and corridor. It will also be beneficial for academicians, researchers, NGOs, students, and other stakeholders for the development policies and conservation plans. Now, I invite Dr. L.P. Nagpurkar sir, Organizing Secretary and Program Officer, EnvoCare Nature Club, for introductory remark. Dr. Nagpurkar sir, please.
Hello, very good morning, madam.
Good morning, sir.
Madam,
Your voice is breaking. Your voice is breaking, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, now audible.
Okay. A very good morning, one and all. Honorable Chairman, Chief Guest, Management, respected principals, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dr. Nagpurkar, the Organizing Secretary of this National E-Conference on Wildlife Conservation Approach. I would like to welcome eminent speakers of this inaugural session, all the distinguished delegates, faculty members, participants, representatives of NGOs, media person, and dear students. This National E-Conference is jointly hosted by J.M. Patel College, Bhandara, M.B. Patel College, Sakoli, S.N. Moore College, Tumsar, affiliated to Rashtrasant Tukadoji Maharaj Nagpur University of Maharashtra State. I especially thanks to our collaborative partner today, Wildlife Trust of India. The organization is working with the Central India Tiger Securement Project, who supported us with the strong ideology of the wildlife conservation for this National E-Conference. Friends, we need to meet virtually rather than in person, but obviously due to COVID-19, as we have no choice at all. However, I wholeheartedly welcome to all delegates and participants across the country. I thank our collaborative partner, as it is first time that Education Institution of the Higher Studies at NNTR Landscape in Bhandara district has got the collaboration of nationally and internationally recognized non-governmental organization, that is Wildlife Trust of India. Article 48 of the Constitution of India says, the state shall endeavor to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forest and wildlife of the country. Article 51A states that it shall be the duty of every citizen of India to protect and improve the national environment, including forests, rivers, lakes, and wildlife, and to have the compassion for living creatures. India is said to be one of the world's richest countries in terms of the biological diversity. It has more than 8% of the total number of species in the world, that is estimated to be 1.6 million. The flora is one of the richest in the world due to its wide range of the climate, topography, and habitat in the country. There are estimated to be over 18,000 species of the flowering plants and has great variety of fauna numbering 89,451 species. They are the home of the 80% of the world terrestrial biodiversity, and they also from the source of livelihood for many different human settlement, including 60 million indigenous people. Conservation is necessary to preserve the ecological diversity and our life support system, such as air, water, and soil. And the central government has also come up with a different project for protecting species, specific animals which were gravely threatened, which includes the majestic animal tiger, rhinos, and other important species. There are already undesirable evidences that Madam already told you, which are facing extinction. Also, the climate change is also affecting the feeding and breeding pattern of some important species and their behavior and distribution. Conservation challenges in the landscape includes poaching of the endangered species and their prey, also the human-wildlife conflict, development of the linear infrastructure, which includes the construction of highways, expansion of the railway network, construction of dams and canals and bridges also. Despite of all these challenges, Central India landscape is recognized by the Government of India as a region with one of the best potential for wild tiger recovery in the long run, as it has a large forest tracts connected through wildlife corridor, and the local NGOs are also involved in reducing conflict between them and the people. The conference is aimed to cultivate ecological and conservation literacy among all sections of society. As human beings living on this planet, it is our responsibility, my friends, to save the global environment and to hand it over to the next generation. Wildlife also need to be protected and to live in harmony with us. When we think about the close relationship between the human being and wildlife, it is undoubtedly clear that we need to commit ourselves to their coexistence. Also, WWF India is working to generate awareness about the clean and efficient energy solution, climate innovation, mobilizing communities to come together and take collective action, reversing climate change. Friends, I must mention here that higher education can play a crucial role in sustainable development of any nation, as environmental sustainability is becoming an increasingly important issue for the world. The role of higher education institution in relation to environmental sustainability is more prevalent. Universities are the apex bodies in higher education system and can provide environmental education through its curriculum design, research and collaborative efforts with NGOs working in those areas. They can provide the trained manpower and knowledgeable expertise to solve critical environmental problems. Therefore, the collaboration of the Wildlife Trust of India to us is highly welcome. Scientists have also been encouraged during last 5 years by the efforts of funding organizations, governments and policymakers to outreach and research partnership with the local communities through schools and informal citizen science education. I believe the national conference will increase opportunities for the constructive dialogues and to inspire by the deliberations of the genius speakers to whom we have been invited today and tomorrow. Among other, Mr. Jose Luis, Deputy Director and Head of the Wildlife Crime Control Board, Wildlife Trust of India, New Delhi. Dr. Suresh Kumar, Senior Scientist, Wildlife Institute of India, Dehradun. Dr. Muhammad Firoz Ahmed, Scientist, F. Head, TRCD and HRCD, Aranya, Guwahati. And Dr. Ejaz Hussain, Project Scientist from Tough Topography of Ladakh. And of course, our Chief Guest, Honorable Manikanda Ramanujan, Sir, CF and Field Director, Navegaon Nagjira Tiger Resort. The work of these experts will explore where and how the landscape can accommodate India's need for infrastructure without harming the crucial habitat of corridor, as they have their own working experiences at various topographical regions in India. And with this, with the support of modern technology, it will also be beneficial for academicians, researchers, NGOs, students, and other stakeholders for the developmental policy and conservation plan. As a matter of fact, there is still a big challenge that we are facing related to unsustainable utilization of biodiversity, such as illegal trade of wildlife and associated crimes due to unconcerned mindset of some people. Therefore, with the collective efforts of the government, local NGOs, and local communities, to help to tackle the illegal wildlife trade and combat related issues. Law enforcement has also been able to protect 7.6 million hectares of the forest so far. This is showing how important law enforcement as well as the close relation embodied between biodiversity and forest as an ecosystem. Wildlife and the Forest Department, with the joint effort of local NGOs and local communities, lot of work has been done at different parts of our country. However, I believe if we can work together to formulate indicators, instruments, mechanism, efforts, and the way forward to achieve ambitious goal for post-2020 global biodiversity framework. I hope you all will enjoy the deliberations of the conference today and tomorrow. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to propose and conclude my big welcoming address that we take as our guiding concept to save wildlife is to save human life. And always keeping those words in mind, let's work together for the world where the people and wildlife coexist in harmony, strengthen the conservation efforts, and make this conference a grand success. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Over
you,
to
sir.
Madam Mahajan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for briefing us about wildlife conservation in such a nice way. Now, as the principal of our college, Dr. Vikas Dhomne sir is unable to join us today's inaugural function because of his health issue, but sir, best wishes are always with us. So now I would like to invite Dr. Harish Trivedi sir, principal, MB Patel College, Sakoli, for the welcome address. Sir, please.
Good morning, all of you. On the eve of World Wetland Day, we are organizing this e-conference, 2 days e-conference, jointly by J.M. Patel College, Bhandara, our college, MB Patel College, Sakoli, SN Moore College and Godavari Devi Saraf Science College, Tumsar, and WTI. The chief guest of today's function, Ramanujan sir, and our eminent speakers, Mr. Joyce Lewis, the Deputy Director of Wildlife Crime Control Division, Dr. Suresh Kumar, Scientist, E-Wildlife Institute of India, Dehradun, Dr. Mohammad Firoz Ahmed, Scientist F, H, TRCD and HRCD, Assam, India, and Dr. Ijaz Hussain, Project Scientist of Project Area Ladakh, India. And the organizers and head of the department of the various colleges, J.M. Patel College, Bhandara, our college, Sakoli, my colleague principals, Dr. Vikas Dhomne of Bhandara, Dr. Chetan Masram, Principal SN Moore College, Tumsar, Mr. Praful Bahadurkar, Bamburkar, Coordinator, Central India Tiger Courier Result, WTI, and the convener of the team, Veena Mahajan Madam, Jadhav Sir, Nagpurkar Sir, Khune Sir, and other organizing committee. So I welcome all our eminent speakers, chief guests to this 2-day seminar, and I wish all the best of luck for this seminar. This seminar will definitely will provide a particular event because our participants are from various areas, from Assam, from Assam to Ladakh, and all over India. So I hope that this 2-day seminar will definitely fruitful and will be helpful to all the participants. So thank you very much for providing me the chance to speak before you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your informative welcome note. Now, it's my proud privilege to introduce today's chief guest and keynote speaker, Mr. Manikanda Ramanujam, IFS Conservator and Field Director, Nagzira Navegaon Tiger Reserve, Gondia. Sir is basically from Tamil Nadu and has joined IFS in 2004. He has worked as Deputy Conservator Forest in various divisions like Pabhani, Vadsa in Gadchiroli District, Shahapur in Thane District, East Nashik Forest Divisions. In 2018, Sir has prompted as a Conservator of Forest and posted as Field Director NNTR. With this determination, now I invite Mr. Manikanda Ramanujam sir to enlighten us on this occasion. Sir, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot for nice introduction. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are very much audible.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Vikas Dhomne, Principal J.M. Patel College, Bhandara. Dr. Harish Trivedi, Principal MB Patel College, Sakoli. Dr. Chetan Masram, Principal SN Moore College, Tumsar. Mr. Prafulla Bamburkar, Coordinator, Central India Tiger Corridor, WTI. Dr. Veena Mahajan, Head of the Department, Zoology, J.M. Patel College, Bhandara. Dr. M.F. Jadhav, Head of the Department, Zoology, MB Patel College, Sakoli. Dr. L.P. Nagpurkar, Associate Professor, NO Care Nature Club, M.B. Patel College, Sakoli. Dr. S.W. Dafare, Coordinator, J.M. Patel College, Bandara. Heads of various departments, faculty and staffs of various colleges, student friends and wildlife scientists. A very good morning to all of you, and I welcome you all to the two-day National E-Conference on Wildlife Conservation in India, a Sustainable Approach. It gives me immense pleasure to participate in the conference as a keynote speaker. I will like to start my keynote address with excerpts from a book, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, which was written by Yuval Noah Harari. I hope few of would have read it. In the book, he has mentioned around 3.8 billion years ago, organisms were evolved in the planet. From about 2 million years ago until around 10,000 years ago, 6 humans were there. 6 different species of human being. Homo neanderthalensis, Homo erectus, Homo ergatus, and Homo solensis, and finally Homo sapiens, which means wise man. So we are also an animal. And around 3 lakh years ago, fire was invented by the human, not Homo sapiens, human. And till then, human were somewhere in the middle of the ecosystem, but not in the apex. Large carnivores were dominating, and they were in the apex of the ecosystem. After the fire was invented, and humans have started terrorizing animals, and they could take advantage over it because of fire. And before 2 lakh years ago, Homo sapiens was evolved in East Africa. And around 12,000 years ago, agriculture revolution started, as you all know, by destroying forest. Agriculture crops are raised in the destroyed forest land. Madagascar, through million years of isolation, so many large creatures developed over a period of time. That is evolution. One among them is elephant bird. Elephant bird. It was the largest bird in the world at that time. Its weight was around 500 kg. And its height was 3 meters. And giant lemurs, they were the largest primates in the world. But all these creatures vanished about just 1,500 years ago. The creatures which evolved over millions of years, all these creatures in Madagascar vanished just 1,500 years ago because of human beings, that is Homo sapiens. Hence, it is very clear that this planet is not only for the one animal species, but it is for the all other species also. This we should always keep in our mind. Now coming to India, the geographical area of India is 32.87 square kilometer. It is only 2.4% of the world's geographical area. It supports around 1.4 billion people. That is 17% of the world's population, and around 80 crore people are living in the rural India. Against 80 crore, 26 crore people are depending on the forest depending on forest resources for their livelihood, day-to-day needs. Hence, there is huge biotic pressure on the forest for fuel wood, for grazing, for timber, for so many things, and for MFE, minor forest produce. In spite of this huge biotic pressure, India supports around 70% of the wild tigers and around 65% of the elephants in the world. Here we have around 91,000 species of fauna. It is around 7% of the world's fauna species. And 46,000 species of plants, which is again around 11, it is 11% of the plant species recorded in the world. Hence, India is considered to be one among the 12 mega biodiversity countries in the world. Then, as you all know, in the year 1973, Project Tiger was started because of the efforts taken by Madam Indira Gandhi, the then Prime Minister of India. One among those 9 tiger reserves is Melghat Tiger Reserve in Maharashtra. And at the time, the area under these tiger reserves are 14,000 square kilometers. In 2022, we have 51 tiger reserves, and the area under these tiger reserves is 73,000 square kilometers. And it constitutes around 2.5% of the geographical area. And 5% of geographical area is under National Park, Sanctuary or Tiger Reserves in India. So we have 95% area under our control. We should think over like this. Can't we spare this 5% area for the 99% species when 95% area can be occupied one species? Can't we spare 5% area for more than 90,000 faunal species? And for information, I would like to tell one more thing. Wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, protected areas all over world, it occupies only 1% of the planet's land area. In the world level, I am telling. So remaining 99% of the world's geographical area is occupied by only one animal species, that is Homo sapiens. So again, we should think over it. In the world level, can't we spare 1% area for the wildlife? And in India level, can't we spare 5% area exclusively for wildlife? So what I feel is awareness, creating awareness among the people, especially students, is very much important. It is going to play a major role in conservation of the wildlife in India. While going to schools or colleges, I used to ask only these questions. Friends, if somebody enters your home and assault you, how you will feel? If they kill all your family members, entering your home and killing all your family members, how you will feel? If they enter your home and take away your food, how you will feel? If they form pathway in your home and they are going through your home and dividing it into 2 parts, how you will feel? If they encroach and evict you away from your home, how you will feel? If they lit fire in your house, how you will feel? I used to ask this question, then I will ask, just imagine you are doing all these things to the home of the wildlife, how the animals will feel. What I feel is, other than forest department, college education institutes, non-governmental organizations, they too can play a major role. For example, now we have NO Nature Club in MB Patel College, Sakoli, which is working exceptionally well under the dynamic leadership of Dr. LP Nagpurkar. And we could see the results of the works which is being which are taken by the Nagpurkar sir and his team. I am very much thankful to them. And likewise, so many NGOs like Wildlife Conservation Trust, WCT, Wildlife Trust of India, WTI, and WPSI, Wildlife Protection Society of India. So many NGOs are there who are also playing key role in sensitizing the people and in catching hold of the poachers. They are playing a major role. They are supporting forest department like anything. And what I used to tell, we should conserve forest and wildlife at least for our own benefits, if not for the benefit of wild animal. You take the origin of any river, except for snow-fed rivers like Indus and Ganges. Take Godavari, origin Trambak forest, Narmada, Amarkantak forest, Kaveri, Kurg forest. So take any river, its origin will be in the forest area. And so without forest, there is no water. There is no water means there is no human being. And if it is possible to convert a seasonal river to a perennial river just by declaring a forest area as the tiger reserve. Many of us may say, no, it is not possible. But it is possible. It happened in very much before our eyes at Tamil Nadu. Actually, there is a river called Tamrabarani. Just you Google it, you will get lot many information. Tamrabarani river, it is in southern part of Tamil Nadu. It is located in Tirunelveli district. In 1880s, one Mr. R.K. Pukle, he was the British collector of that district. He warned that large-scale clearing of forests in the Kalakad forest, large-scale clearing of trees in the Kalakad forest, definitely will make the perennial river a seasonal river. At the time, it was perennial river. 1880s. Kalakad area was the watershed for that river, Tamrabarani. After 100 years of his words, that is in the 1980s, same thing happened. What which was mentioned by Dr. Pukul, the British collector of the Tirunelveli district. It became a seasonal river, and it was found dry for about 4 months. That is February, March, April, May. So what happened in the meantime in the year 1992? The catchment area of Tamrabarani River, Kalakad Mundandrai, it was declared as the Kalakad Mundandrai Tiger Reserve, KMTR. Now again, this river has become a perennial river. And today it is a lifeline for 4 districts. Tirunelveli, Tuticorin, Sivagasi and Virudhunagar. They are getting for irrigation, drinking water. All the people from these 4 districts are depending on this Tamrabarani river. Just imagine, just because declaring forest tiger reserve and conserving it, a seasonal river has become perennial river again. And I was working as Deputy Conservator of Forest in Shahapur. It is in Thane district. The Shahapur forest area, I used to tell like this. It is the lifeline of Mumbai. In Mumbai, Asia's richest persons are there. Crorepati, everyone is there. But if they don't have water, what they will do? From Shahapur, there Tansa River, Batsa, Vaitarana, so many rivers. It is a catchment area for all these rivers. From there, huge pipelines for supplying drinking water are laid. It is supplying water to the Mumbai city. So I used to call Shahapur Forest Division as the lifeline of Mumbai. Let us consider Pench River. It supplies water to the Nagpur city. If there is no Pench River, there is no water for Nagpur citizens. Just because of Pench Tiger Reserve, we are getting water from Pench River. So more than it is playing the role of a source of water. It's a second important activity which is being played by the forest and especially tiger reserves. It acts as a reservoir of gene pool. There are around 300 wild ancestors for the cultivated varieties. Take any crop: rice, wild rice; turmeric, wild turmeric; ginger, wild ginger; tur, wild tur. So take any crop, any pulse, we have its wild variety in the forest area. Just imagine if you destroy the forest, there will be the gene pool will be destroyed. In 1970s, Gracie Trent viral disease. It has become almost like an epidemic in Southeast Asia. It has destroyed the paddy crop over an area of 1,16,000 hectares. In 1970s, it happened. Rice is the staple food for the most of the Asian people. In Asia, it is a staple food. So, a scientist, they started searching for the wild gene which can resist this grass-stunt viral disease. Finally, they found that virus-resistant gene from wild rice in central India. That is the Balaghat, Gondia area, wild rice. That is called Parsodi, if I'm right. Parsodi. Devdan, Parsodi, in local language, they used to call it. From the wild rice, they have extracted that gene, virus-resistant gene, and they have introduced a new variety cultivar called IR36. IR stands for International Rice. IR36. Which has become resistant to almost all the major rice diseases. And one more thing I would like to quote here, the importance of forest as a gene pool. As you all know, the coastal area of Odisha and West Bengal, they are known for super cyclone. The super cyclone used to affect the coastal area like anything every year. In 1990s, one super cyclone has caused enormous damage to the people living in the coastal area of Odisha and West Bengal. Some villages, the land of some villages turned saline because of the intrusion of the salt water. So, but rice is a staple food for the people living in that West Bengal coastal area. And it is a staple diet. They used to practice their farming paddy for the last so many centuries. They were helpless. Then the scientists, again they started doing research on this in this field. They could extract the saline resistant gene from the paddy which was going deep inside the Sundarban Tiger Reserve. And they have developed saline resistant rice variety. And the farmers in this village are raising that saline resistant paddy. Now they could retain their livelihood. So why I am quoting these two examples? It acts as a gene pool and it acts as a resource for the water. And important one more thing I would like to tell you all is biomimic. From dragonfly, they have invented helicopter. And likewise in South Africa, there is a huge sized mall. Its air is conditioned. It is always in air condition. Its temperature remains same. There is no AC machine. But what they did, just they mimic the structure of the termite mound. Termite mound, how they are maintaining the temperature inside the termite mound. Just they copied the concept of this termite mound and they have constructed a mall, huge mall. There is no AC machine, there is no electricity consumption at all. But the temperature remains same. So now I will come to the role of forest department which is playing in the wildlife conservation. For motivating our staffs, I used to tell one thing. Dekho bhai, there are a number of departments are there to take care of one animal species. That is Homo sapiens. Take any department, revenue department, police, Zilla Parishad, take any department, survey department, they all are working for only one species. But only one department is there to take care of around 91,000 faunal species in India. So they will be very happy. That is our forest department. तुम लोग ईश्वरीय काम कर रहे हैं. Only one thing, one major difference is if police people make encounter, flash news, breaking news, सब हो जाते. They'll get credit. But our benefits are intangible. I have quoted one example, Tamarabarni River. It was perennial river. Then it became a seasonal river. Again, it became perennial river after declaring it as Tiger Reserve for about 20 years. But war and night, we can't build the road. The same thing happened to that river also. Just because of huge efforts of so many people, it could happen. And when we all are celebrating Diwali by bursting crackers, distributing sweets, and celebrating going to cinema halls, enjoying new movies, my forest guard, one Majors, they'll be doing their duties sincerely during Diwali. They'll be roaming somewhere in the remote jungle. Because if he goes on leave, everyone knows what will happen. We too feel very bad. We used to issue a circular. No leave should be granted at any cost without getting permission from the field director. Everyone knows it is very difficult for sending the letter from the field level to forester, forester to RFO, ranger said, deputy director, ACF, deputy director to field director. It will take at least 1 month. They all know very well it is not going to happen. So they won't take leave. We also feel very bad, because if you are offering 1 crore rupee on the day, and if you are telling you can go on leave, people will opt for leave, because Diwali is a major festival for all of us. We all know very well. And for the people from outside, they used to feel they are enjoying their life. Yes, we are enjoying our life like anything, foresters. But it is a highly risky job. As long as you're enjoying, yes, you'll enjoy. But in a fraction of a second, anything may happen. I like to quote 2 incidents for your information. In November 2021, Miss Swati Dumani, a lady guard, while she was conducting census, she was killed by a tigress in Tadova. You all know very well. Likewise, in December 2021, a male leopard entered a locality in Srirampur town of Ahmednagar district. One Mr. Kirkar, who is a forest guard basically from Nagar division. He was just laying a net to trap that leopard, but leopard jumped on him and mauled him. Later on, he succumbed to injuries in the hospital. I'm just in quote 2 recent incidents which happened. Like so many people are injured very badly. They lost their eyes, hands, they have become paralyzed. So many things used to take place in the field. Frontline staffs, they are ready to pay, they're ready to sacrifice their life also for wildlife conservation. Hence, whenever we find the forest department field frontline staffs, especially, we should respect them like anything, and we should try to support them whenever they are in trouble. Why I am telling this thing is, before in this conference is, so many students are there. Somebody may become Sarpanch, Amdar, Kasdar, even they may become forest minister also, who knows. So you should consider all these things whenever you are in some position. Then regarding tiger conservation, as you all know, tiger is an umbrella species. Why we are giving so much concentration, we are putting so much efforts for conserving tiger? Why not other tiger species? Why not other species? Tiger is an umbrella species in an ecosystem. If tiger is there, everything is in a place. If tiger is there, herbivores will be there. Forest will be very good. Forest will be there. That's why we are trying to level best to give importance for tiger conservation. And tiger is a species which can survive in extreme temperatures from -40 to +40 degrees Celsius. And now the tiger is left with only around 5 to 7% of the home range tigers used to roam in the world previously. Now they are only 5 to 7% of the home range. In 2006, the number of tigers was 1411. In 2010, it has become 1706. In 2014, it has become 2226. In 2018, the number of tigers in India is 2967. Thus, in a span of 12 years, tigers population has doubled in India. It's a great achievement. And as of today, around 70% of the world's tiger is in India. And I used, from my observation, I could tell one thing with confidence. Just provide 4 things to the tiger, and it will take care of itself and it will its tiger's number will increase on its own. First thing is food, that is adequate prey base. Second thing, water, and third is good habitat, that is good forest, and fourth one is protection. If you provide all these 3 things, tiger will take the number of tigers will increase on its own. We need not bother. For example, Panna Tiger Reserve, it is located in MP, Madhya Pradesh. In 2008, the number of tigers reduced to 0 because of poaching and so many things. In 2022, now, after about 14 years, the number of tigers is, adult tigers is 50. Cubs, plus cubs, if you're including, it may be something around 80. As adult tigers is 50. Navega, Nagzira, there are skewed sex ratio for the last 10 years. 3 female, 5 male, 3 female, 4 female. But in the last 2 years, we are observing a good thing. The sex ratio has reversed. It has been, now the number of tigers is 5 and tigers is thin. It's a very good sign. 2 tigresses have come from outside and they've settled down in NNTR. It means there we have enough adequate prey base for tigers, food, we are giving good protection, and we are giving them a good habitat. Unless we don't provide these things, they won't settle. Yeto pakka. So, and one more good thing is, actually, as only 100 participants, I can tell it with proud. 5 tigresses are there. All those 5 tigresses are blessed with the cubs. It's a greatest achievement. It's a milestone in the history of NNTR. And if whenever tiger gives birth to the cubs, it's a great news for all the forest officers. That too in NNTR, where it is divided to 2 different blocks, Navega and Nagzira, which is separated by around 25 to 30 kilometer habitation, where you can find a number of villages, people, and 185 villages are there in the buffer zone of this tiger reserve. Whereas if you take the villages in the Bor Tiger Reserve, Pench and Tadoba, taking all these villages buffer, it comes only 162 in all these 3 tiger reserves. But in only 1 tiger reserve, we have 185 villages in the buffer zone. So you can imagine what kind of pressure, biotic pressure may be there. With this, the great difficulty only our staffs are working. And one more thing, information regarding tiger is, just because of mating, we can't ensure fertilization. It needs repeated mating, then only it can fertilize. Just because of fertilization, we can't say consumption will take place. Consumption rate in lion and tigers is only 20 to 40%. Now we will come to the threats which is being faced by the tiger. So many threats are there, as you all know, but in this landscape, we are observing the major threat to be electrocution. Organized poaching is not happening in this landscape. In Maharashtra, I can say with confidence, but electrocution. They try to hunt the animals for bushmeat, that is herbivores like wild pig, chital, sambar, and black buck. But by accident, the carnivores like leopard and tiger also gets electrocuted. I'll give one small data which can sensitize you all people the extent of electrocution taking place in Vidarbha landscape. On 3rd June 2022, a tigress was electrocuted in Bhadravati range in Chandrapur Forest Division. On 13th January, in Arjuni Morgaon range, a male tiger was electrocuted. It is in Gondia Forest Division. On 28th January 2022, a male tiger was electrocuted in Bandara range in Bandara Forest Division. it happened in agriculture land. So these 3 tigers electrocuted only just in a 1 month. It is not organized poaching. It was only for bushmeat. And fortunately, we could arrest all these offenders who are involved in this case. We are trying a level best to prevent the animals from getting electrocuted by going for joint patrolling with MSD's people and taking the help of NGOs like WCT, WTI, and WPSI. After electrocution, second thing is maintaining corridor. It is very much important to maintain gene flow in the tiger population. If there is no gene flow, then inbreeding will take place in any population. If inbreeding takes place, it won't take much more time to wipe out the entire population. It will take place at any point of time. For example, T7, which is the dominant tiger in Navega block, as on today, it has come from Kana Tiger Reserve. It should have come all through forest area, villages, agricultural landscape. Likewise, Jay, the tiger which is known all over world by the tiger lovers. Its birthplace is Nagzira. Then it migrated from Nagzira block to Umred Karanla sanctuary. So then tigresses from Tadoba, tiger from Tadoba, it has come to Umred Karanla sanctuary. So because of these things, because of migration, because of corridor, migration takes place. Because of migration, gene flow takes place. In any population, it will take place. If there is no corridor, then no gene flow, the gene pool will get affected. Then that any population will get wiped out in no time. So we should maintain the corridor. And third thing is we should try to reduce biotic pressure on forests. We are providing LPG connection, and we are trying to encourage the people for stall feeding, and we are trying to encourage them for raising fodder plot in the backyards of their house. And now I am coming to the topic of this conference, wildlife conservation in India, sustainable approach. India is a developing nation, and it is the second most populous country after China. Conservation will should go hand in hand with development. There is no other way. Whether middle path is there, yes. Where there is a will, there is a way. First thing is we should go for mitigation measures. Whenever development projects are taking place, it is being proposed. First thing we should think of is mitigation measures. Just like they have provided underpasses in Pench Tiger Reserve. I hope you people would have visited Pench Tiger Reserve. You would have come across this underpass. And here also in National Highway 6, which connects Raipur to Nagpur, there we have proposed underpasses at 3 places. If there is no underpass, definitely there will be a break in the corridor of the tiger, and it will affect gene flow. Then second thing is voluntary relocation of villages wherever people are ready. It's very, very important. 5 villages from Navega block were translocated, and they are settled down in Srirampur village. It is located between Saundad and Sakoli. Because they were relocated from the Navega block, now we have developed very good meadow, and herbivores are found in large number, chital and Indian gaur. It is locally called bison. Actually, it is Indian gaur. So what happened? Before 2 years, a tigress has given birth to 3 cubs in that area. Just imagine, if the villages are there, heavy disturbance will be there, no animal will come. But in the year 2019, a tigress has given birth to 3 cubs in the same area from where the villages are relocated. And third thing is coexistence with wild animals. Brahmapuri, I think Profula Bamburkar sir can give details about this coexistence. He is a very well experienced wildlifer. What happened Brahmapuri before 10 years, whenever tiger enters the village, people used to make phone call to forest officer sir, bandobast karo. But after 10 years, they got used to it. Now they are coexisting with the tigers. The number of tigers in Brahmapuri is around 50. But whereas in tiger it is not a tiger reserve, there is no sanctuary, nothing. The highest density tigers is there in Brahmapuri Forest Division. People got used to it. Now they are not getting terrified because just by seeing tiger, they started living with tigers. Once there is acceptance is there among the people, then there will be no issue. We should focus more on this aspect, that coexistence with animals. Finally, I would like to convey my sincere thanks to the organizers, J.M. Patel College, M.B. Patel College, S.N. Moore College, G.D. Saraf College, and Wildlife Trust of India for coming forward to take this wonderful initiative for conserving the wildlife in the country. And moreover, my sincere thanks to all of you for giving opportunity, for inviting me and giving me opportunity to address the August gathering. And I sincerely hope that this conference will definitely contribute in a large scale towards wildlife conservation in the country. And my best wishes to the organizers for conducting the conference, this 2-day conference successfully. My best wishes to the students, the future of our country, to excel in their studies and become a responsible citizen of this country. And finally, I would like to complete my keynote address with my favorite quote. Only when the last tree has died and the last river has been poisoned and the last fish has been caught will we realize that we cannot eat money. Thank you all once again. Jai Hind, Jai Maharashtra.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for being with us and sharing your words of wisdom. Sir has explained us about the evolution of life, geographical distribution of India and forest. And sir has also thrown light on Project Tiger and their conservation. And I think we all are really need to conserve them. So we are rarely get this kind of opportunity to listen to the words of a great knowledgeable person like you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Now I invite Dr. Mahendra Rao, Field Officer, Invocare Nature Club, for briefing us about Wildlife Trust of India.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Just. So welcome all. Wildlife Trust of India was formed in 1998 in response to many crises confronting India's wildlife and wild habitats. Its mission is to conserve wildlife in its habitat and to work for the welfare of individual wild animal in partnership with communities and governments. Currently, there are 40 conservation projects across 23 states, from Pir Panjal Mountains in Kashmir to the mangrove forest of Kannur, Kerala, from Himalaya black bear forest in Arunachal to whale shark pupping areas of Gujarat coast. Our 9 big ideas are wild aid, wild rescue, species recovery, protected area recovery, conflict mitigation, enforcement and law, wildlands, natural heritage campaign, rite of passage. WTI since 2005 in Central India works under Central India Tiger Corridor Securement Project with various donors and Maharashtra Forest Department. So we are working in Nagajira-Navegaon corridor, which links two global priority one landscapes, that means Kanha and Tadoba. More than 90,000 people live in 89 villages scattered across this NNTR landscape, and National Highway 6 that cut through this wildlife corridor add to the existing pressure on this tiger habitat. Tiger by nature are territorial and require linkages in their habitat for dispersal of their population. And pressure on the corridor is from natural resource exploitation, livestock grazing, hunting, and human-wildlife conflict in the tiger habitat. Here, Nagajira-Navegaon Tiger Reserve connects Pench, Melghat, Bor, Umred Karandla, Tadoba Andhari Tiger Reserve, and Indravati Tiger Reserve, Tipesar Wildlife Sanctuary. So this is very crucial locations, connects major tiger reserves in Vidarbha landscape. So working as Ramanujan sir mentioned, Nagajira-Navegaon Tiger Reserve is the heart of the Central Indian landscape tiger conservation. The problem arises initially when project started in 2006. The total tiger numbers across Maharashtra state, so 103 in the year 2006. That meant in that particular time, the population was declining, and loss of existing habitat through encroachment for agriculture, settlement, national highway and state highway road widening, natural resources overexploitation due to lack of alternate livelihood. So these were some of the major problems faced Nagajira-Navegaon Tiger Reserve. So what impact needed to be achieved in this landscape? So to ensure long-term presence and movement of tigers in Nagajira-Navegaon and Navegaon-Tadoba corridors in Central Indian landscape. So our coordinator, Sri Prafulla Bhamurkar sir, Central India Tiger Corridor Securement Projects. So he filed affidavit in Supreme Court for the construction in the selective areas of Nagajira, underpasses construction in the selective areas of Nagajira-Navegaon corridor. And now underpasses will be built at Sirpur Navatola, Maramjab Dongargaon, Bamni Dugipar, and Sapuli Mundipar. So the Forest Department is working very hard and to conserve, although there are many more challenges for the conservation of wildlife in this landscape, but Forest Department in collaboration with various NGOs and institutions, now 4 underpasses will be constructed. And in 2012, New Nagajira Wildlife Sanctuary and Navegaon Wildlife Sanctuary declared, and in 2016, entire corridor declared as a buffer in NNTR. Again, declaration of 180 kilometer square of forested area as the Mansingh Wildlife Sanctuary, adding it to the Pench Tiger Reserve in 2010. Tiger occupancy and landscape connectivity surveys were organized from 2008. Transit line surveys, tiger occupancies and landscape connectivity surveys, corridor bottleneck identification and village prioritizations in Nagajira-Navegaon, grid-wise occupancies of tiger in Nagajira-Navegaon-Tadoba corridor in 2013, and create baseline for prey distribution and habitat health. So these were some of the major surveys, tiger occupancy and landscape connectivity surveys. Socio-economic surveys, village maps, PRA maps of these 89 villages located in this corridor. And these villages were classified into 3 categories, priority 1, 2, 3, these total 89 villages in Nagajira-Navegaon corridor from 2011 to 2016. And from 2011 onward, one work on forest dependence reduction in NNTR was initiated through vocational trainings like bakery products, soap and toiletries, solar fence trainees, honey beekeeping, NTFE food processing. Honey beekeeping was in Brahmapuri. And total efforts has catered to 44 villages. That means 37 in NTR and 7 in Brahmapuri during the work. And 80% of the trainees adopt and pursue new non-forest dependent livelihoods now. Firewood consumption reduced by 30%. We have installed 6,239 improved cook stove. Improved cook stove is the transition between traditional cook stove and LPG, because ultimately LPG is needed, but improved cook was the transition from traditional cook stove to liquefied petroleum gas, that is LPG. So total of 6,239 improved cook stoves were provided in NNTR and TATR from 2011 to 2020, and 27 LPG were provided to Chudurka and Paikatula village in NNTR, and fuel extraction reduced by 20% as per the data compiled by the sociologist. 3 PBRs, People's Biodiversity Registered, endorsed by Maharashtra State Biodiversity Board, because capacity building and technical assistance to community-based organizations were organized in collaboration with the Forest Department. And first ever biocultural community protocol developed for 3 villages in Maharashtra, and 3 PBRs were drafted for 3 Gram Panchayat, 2 in NNTR and 1 in Brahmapuri, all of which are endorsed by Maharashtra State Biodiversity Board. The capacity building trainings were organized. Again, 5 orientation programs were organized in NNTR and TATR, in which 118 community-based organizations were trained for knowledge on laws, MAU, implementation, planning, microplan, functional difference in working between different CBOs, because there are various committees are working in villages like JFM, EDC, CFRC, and various. So that is the functional difference in working between different CBOs. So 5 rotation programs were organized both in NNTR and TATR. Under One Rakshak project training, wildlife crime prevention trainings were organized for forest staff in Nagjara Wildlife Sanctuary and Navegaon National Park in 2011. Awareness for conservations is as Ramanujan sir and Dr. Nagpurkar sir mentioned, that awareness is most required for the conservation of wildlife. So a total of 83 awareness programs were organized, wherein outreach was 11,270 people in 40 villages. One media workshop was organized in Nagpur, wherein all the media persons were briefed for wildlife related news, so that media workshop was helpful to write the stories on various wildlife conservation works across the Maharashtra state. A rapid response team was formed under IUCN project from 2017 to 2020. So at least 40% of human large carnivore conflict resolved without requiring captures in Brahmapuri region from 2017 to 2020, and a total of 197 cases concerning large carnivores attending to by RRT, 31 cases of tiger, 23 cases of leopard, 8 cases of sloth bear, and 135 other species. So 48% of cases concerning other species handled without requiring capture and translocation. Amelioration meeting was we also call it as a peace meeting, as per the Divisional Conservator of Forest, Sri Kulraj Singh sir, when he was DCF in Brahmapuri region, he and WTI, means Forest Department and WTI in collaborative way, amelioration meetings were organized, and the human wildlife conflict was addressed. wherein 36 villages participation was 3,619 people participated in Brahmapuri region. So human wildlife conflict was addressed through these amelioration meetings, and it is most important work for to participate the villagers to know how the conflict is going on and what the need from villager point of view, what type of support required, everything. So collaborative efforts in people's as well as forest department and all the institutions, they all need collaborative efforts to save and to handle this conflict. So these amelioration meetings helpful to reduce some sort of wildlife conflict in that region. On the other hand, solar fence and chain link fences were also strategy of crop breeding return techniques assessed and plan for reducing crop breeding by at least 50% developed for project villages. And low-cost solar powered fences were selected and installed in NNTR and TATR. And chain link fence was installed in Murpar and Lendazari of NNTR landscape. Under our rapid action project support, during the pandemic situation, COVID-19 relief ration beneficiaries in NNTR and TATR, so total of 240 beneficiaries families were benefited through COVID-19 relief under our rapid action project, and supported 1 lakh rupees to each skin of deceased families for forest staff in NNTR and TATR during pandemic in 2021. And supported to kin of deceased families with 1 lakh rupees each in forest fire casualties, total of 6 families in NTR, and supported again 1 lakh rupees to a kin of deceased family in TATR when forest guard died on duty in tiger encounter in 2021, as Ramanujan sir mentioned during his presentations. And we also supported to forest department as vehicles were donated to Department of Wildlife, and Hivarwala camp was constructed in Nagjira Wildlife Sanctuary under our rapid action project. From 2018-19 assessment, as I mentioned earlier, that 103 tigers were present in 2006 in that assessment. But it is as also mentioned by Ramanujan sir that the now tiger number is increasing. That means 103 in 2006 to 168 in 2010, and now 312 as per the latest assessment in total Maharashtra state. So some of our self-help groups. So we are working with self-help groups and students and local villagers. So some of our SSG Hirakani Award for their best micro enterprises, and this is some of the women SSGs put their best foot forward for tiger conservation, and this is some media support. A special thank to our donors, and thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for briefing us about Wildlife Trust of India in such a nice way. So now it's time to conclude our inaugural ceremony here. So I express my deep sense of gratitude to our esteemed distinguishing chief guest for giving us precious time from your busy schedule. It really means a lot for us. Once again, thank you, sir, for sharing your words of wisdom. Then we are very much thankful to all the chief organizers, Dr. Vikas Dhumne sir, Dr. Harish Trivedi sir, Dr. Chetan Mashram sir, then Mr. Prashant Bambulkar sir, for their constant support and encouragement for this event. I would like to thank our resource person, Mr. Jose Luis, Dr. Suresh Kumar, Dr. Muhammad Firoz Ahmed, and Dr. Ajaz Hussain for being with us for the inaugural function and for sparing their valuable time with us. I'm very much thankful to Dr. Karthik Panikar for always being with us for any kind of support. And once again, thank you very much, sir, for your much needed cooperation and any time. I'm thankful to Dr. Shyam Dafre, sir, DBT coordinator, for much needed help. I'm thankful to the organizing committee, all the office bearers of WTI, Envocare Nature Club, all the heads of the department, staff, participants, and dear students. Once again, I I'm thankful to all of you for your presence on this inaugural function. Now, we are going to start our technical session 1. So we are enough fortunate to have with us our resource person for the technical session 1 is Mr. Jose Luis, Deputy Director and Chief of Wildlife Crime Control Division, WTI, India. Sir is involved in the investigation of wildlife crime across the country for more than 15 years, where a number of undercover investigations resulted in the arrest of suspects who were part of organized wildlife crime network and rescue of wildlife from these traffickers. He is a tech expert who lead the design and implementation of a forest and wildlife crime management system, HAWK, which is currently used in various states across the country, including Kerala. Sir is also the founder of www.indiansnakes.org and member of IUCN Snake Specialist Group. Now, with this determination, I invite Mr. Jose Luis to deliver lecture on snares as a tool of hunting, great threats to wildlife conservation. Sir, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity. And I'm not elaborating in the introduction session. It's already done. And it's an honor and it's a privilege to be part of this meeting. And as Madam rightly said, I will be talking about usage of snares and other tools as a hunting methodology across the country. And let me start my presentation with your permission.
Oh.
Just a moment. I'm just sharing my screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Take your time. Yes, sir. Screen is visible now.
I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
So I was actually not planning to attend the opening session and the keynote thing because of some other thing. But when Sir started his conversation or talk about the tiger conservation in Central India and the kind of challenges which they face, I decided that I should attend this session. And it was definitely an eye-opening thing about, listening to park director about the kind of challenges which he faced about tiger conservation in Central India and the kind of success which he and his team is facing or getting or yielding in Central India. So with that, and he briefly talked about the challenges like electrocution. And my talk here is very much connected with that how electrocution or snares are used as a hunting tool in Central India, and or not in Central India, but across the country. And interestingly, the situation of snaring is recently also in the news. A couple of days back, we all heard about that there was a tigress in Pench who was spotted in the camera trap with a snare around her neck. And these are some information which I quickly picked up from the Times of India newspaper. You can see that snares do cause a lot of trouble in the landscape. But it is not limited to that landscape. It is actually across the country, it is a problem. This is a photograph of a tigress which was killed in a wire snare in 2012 in Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary in Kerala. Then there are a few other photographs from various parts of the country. I mean, you can see tigers, you can see leopards, you can see a spotted deer. A lot of wildlife get killed in snares across the country. It is not limited to, it is across, and sometimes painful death, because you can see that it is not a metallic snare. Also, if the picture is clear, you can see that it is a small plastic wire snare which was stuck on the neck of the tiger, and how slowly the tiger died. I mean, all of you can understand what kind of a painful death it must have been. Like, for days, for weeks, the tiger must be suffering with the infection on the neck and then slowly dying. So it's a painful death. And snare need not to be very big or with a very strong wire. Even a plastic wire can kill a tiger. So this is the best example. There's another couple of examples. I'm really sorry to show you all these pictures, but probably this is what will make a lot of people understand that what is the silent problem across our country. And it is from many parts. I mean, it is not limited to one place. So I happen to work across the country with various state forest departments, and walked some forest, and have seen snares, whether it is in the southernmost part of the country in Kerala or in Tamil Nadu, or even in Kashmir, or even in Bhutan. We found snares, like neighboring country, where we went for a small workshop, and we managed to find snares which are used by people there. So it's something which is common. It is used. And this is another interesting picture. The picture is not very clear, but you can see it's a common leopard. It's a it's a melanistic leopard. On the top of a tree, it got stuck in a snare. I mean, when you examine it closely, that is when you will understand that the problem has an interesting twist, that somebody put a small wire snare to catch squirrels. And there must be a squirrel which got caught in the snare, and the leopard, which must be roaming around nearby, saw the squirrel in trouble, thought that it is an easy meal. It climbed up, and it also got into a snare, and it was hanging by one leg, stuck in the snare, and that also died. So it's not that you find snares only on ground, but it's also, you will find snares which are placed on the treetop. So this is the close examination of it. Somebody put a nail on the tree and put a branch and put a clutch wire snare on it, and that killed the two animals. So it's very complicated. Not only tigers and leopards and squirrels die, but also large animals like here the sambar deer also die in snare. This is also a big rescue challenge. This is a very dangerous situation. I exactly don't know who the forest staff was, but the animal is probably dead. But when you try to remove an animal from a snare like this, it is dangerous for the animal and also for the people who are involved. There are many occasions where people got injured while removing animals from the snare. So it's a big challenge. And what is it? I mean, you look at this picture. It's a carefully kept snare in an animal path. Usually you find snares on the fringes of forest, because animals do come out to fields for various things, like for food or for water, or as part of they expand their territory, they move around. So people put snares just outside of the forest. A lot of snares are found outside of the forest. So that's another challenge, that forest department staff may not be able to patrol the outskirts of forest as often or as thorough as they do patrolling within the forest. So you may not be able to see the snare. Look closely. So that's the snare. I mean, I don't know many people can even detect the snare. So this is what happens. A snare, which is a piece of metallic wire usually, and kept hidden in the forest path, very cleverly installed, and animals don't see it unless and until they get trapped in this. So from a bushmeat hunter's point of view, or from a local poacher's point of view, this is probably the most effective mechanism or effective method of hunting an animal, because clutch wires, broken clutch wires don't cost you any money. 5 rupees, 10 rupees, not even that. The local motorcycle mechanic will tell you to take it away, and it is zero investment. Two, it is very easy to install. I mean, you tie a snare and trigger a snare and tie it to a secure place and then leave it there. And it does not have a short shelf life. It has a very long shelf life. Like some of the experts who used to snare told me that the old clutch wires or accelerator wires of scooters and motorcycles are the best, because they also have a thin coat of grease on it. So once you install that there is no reflection of the snare. And the other thing is that because of the coating of grease on it, it's totally invisible in the forest and it will stay for a very long time. So people do install snares and keep it for a long time. I just talked to you about kind of snares which we found. Single loop snares. I'm not going to make any of you as experts on snares, but it is just for an understanding of the problem what we face. So you find the single loop wires, that one snare. Then you will find various types. Sometimes it is with the GI wire, sometimes it is clutch wires. Sometimes you will find improvised ones also with this kind of a little notch. Not a notch. It's actually an attachment to a clutch wire, which will ensure the smooth movement of the wire through it. So clutch wire is something which is commonly used. Then you will find things like plastic pipe, even things which are used for irrigation purposes. We found snares which are used for plastic pipe, and even nylon wire, small or big. It is kept for capturing animals. You can see that. And GI wire, usually which is used for the electric fences. People remove a portion of the GI wire and use that as a snare. And this is another interesting one, a very thick snare, which is a snare which is made of a JCB clutch wire. So these are the kind of snares which we found during the anti-snare walks across the country. And kind of locations like just outside the forest. So this is actually an elephant-proof trench, which is in Karnataka, out in the outskirts of a protected area, tiger reserve actually. So they install the snares in this elephant-proof trenches, where animals actually jump in and jump out. From the forest they get to the village, to the farmlands through this elephant-proof trenches. These are largely small animals, especially wild pigs. And you can see, if you can see this clearly, that you can see that there is an electric fence. So electric fence is to prevent animals to come in, but then they will, animals being wild animals, they will find a way. So wild pigs will, find their ways and means to enter into the fields. So they made this road, they made this pathway, and then the people understood that, okay, these are the places where wild pigs come, they install snares there. Very, very difficult to find, because once an animal is caught in the snare, they usually get stuck and they stay there for a long time. And it's, as it is inside the trench, nobody will see it also. So that's a big challenge. That's the kind of places where you find it. So this is, various pictures collected across the country. Tigers, leopards, spotted deer, sometimes those plastic snares can even kill birds. This is a photograph from Nagarhole in Karnataka, a wild dog which is stuck in a snare. And it's walking. I mean, it will die eventually within a few weeks' time, because the animal can't survive, it can't eat, the blood circulation is getting cut, and infection is setting in. So it's a painful death. A sloth bear from Orissa. So this is a trap which is used in Madhya Pradesh. So it's all over the country. And until recently, nobody was talking about this very seriously. In fact, a couple of weeks, not even a week, a week back, there was a circular from the National Tiger Conservation Authority that NTCA is asking all the tiger reserves to initiate action plan and ground level action to do specific anti-snare walk and anti-electrocution walk in the fringes of the forest, to ensure that our forests are free from this kind of traps. So it's I mean, some stats like 22 tigers and 109 leopards died between 2010 and 2019 due to wire snares. But not only in India. I mean, if you think that snaring is an India-centric problem, or only we Indians keep snares, but look at, I mean, just search for animals and snares. Google will give you a lot of pictures of animals in snares across the world. I mean, it is not our problem. It is probably, I mean, if you look at the widespread use of snares across the world, it is probably more rampant or more commonly used than any other hunting mechanism in the world. So it is not an Indian problem, it is a global problem, and a lot of countries address snaring in different ways. But everybody agrees that, conducting anti-snare walks, snare removal patrols is the best thing to do. So, now we talked about the problem, but how to address this problem? So I thought this session with people from, with the region, and I hope I'm correct in my geography, and with the tigers moving in and out of tiger reserves and its preyways, and especially Ramanujam sir was talking about the kind of problems which he faced with electrocution. I mean, please read snares and electrocution together. So how we solve this problem? I mean, we talk about wildlife conservation, having our forest and our wildlife and the sustainable population of tigers and leopards and wildlife, and which will help the local economy in various ways of, whether it is tourism income or whether it is any other income which is or the other ecosystem services the forest is providing. But to guard these things, how are we going to address this problem? So in our about 10 years of experience of doing anti-snare walks across the country, I mean, we were one of the first organizations to pick up snares as a serious conservation threat. And way back in 2010, we were doing anti-snare walks in southern India, and now we are in 2022, and we are seriously talking about snares. So the first thing is that everybody should understand, anybody who's involved in conservation should understand that it's not a simple hunting thing. It's a cruel killing of animals, and it is a serious issue there. So, and also why I talk about snares in platforms like this is because this is something where, it's not only the responsibility of the forest department to remove snares, and probably they may not be able to remove all the snares which are placed by people in the fringes of the forest. And there is also a community dynamics involved. There is a community support needed to ensure that, people don't put snares, or people who are putting snares are discouraged by the community itself. So first thing is to understanding the threat. Second thing is that we should understand that, what kind of traps or what kind of snares are used. There are different things like, I will also talk about, things like, I don't know what is a local name known as, but this thing in the middle, this round thing is actually an explosive. It is known as a Sutli bomb in central India, where, people put explosives in a little package and then wrap it around with a food, especially rotten meat or something, so that any animal touches it will kill the animal. Then there are wire snares, then there are plastic snares, then there are other hunting techniques, and plus other specialized traps. So we have to understand what kind of equipment, what kind of things which they use in the area. Recently, we were doing anti-snare walks in Valmiki Tiger Reserve, and we understood that all the watchtowers, people set up those watchtowers outside of the forest, to guard their crops. And when these watchtowers were examined, the anti-snare walk team were finding a lot of hunting equipments from these watchtowers just under the roof of this attached roof of the watchtowers. You are finding a lot of hunting equipment, whether it is snares, whether it is spears, whether it is coiled wires for electrocution, a lot of things, I mean, in and around these watchtowers. So that was something, I mean, you need to understand, you need to find information from the local community that how, who, when they do this kind of activities. Then if you really want to remove snares, if you want to really reduce the threat of snaring, then you have to understand the snare the terrain, that what area where people will be putting snares. Understanding the local, I mean, understanding the terrain is very important. That usually the forest department and their trackers are very good at that. What is the best time for the day to search snares? There are people who put snares in the evening and remove it in the morning, or hide it in the morning, or there are some hunting techniques like putting large nets which they will put in the evening, but early morning they will go and examine for an animal. If there is nothing, they will just fold it and keep it in the field. So I say it's the early morning time is one of the best time to search for snares. And what is the team composition? Like for my example, the initial days of anti-snare walk, I was very charged up, much younger, and wanted to do a lot of, wanted to walk 25 kilometers a day and remove snares. We walked 3-4 days and we could not find anything. We are not the experts on putting snares at that point of time. But then when we got somebody local, somebody who used to put snares, or somebody who had the idea of putting snares, he walked with us, and the same route he walked, and within half an hour we were finding snares, because we think about certain areas, like somebody will put a snare in near the water hole or something, or in an animal path where we think. But no, the people who put snares, they have a different way of looking at it. So your team composition should have a local, or people who know the terrain and who know, snaring. You need a reformed bushmeat hunter who will help you and train your frontline staff to do proper anti-snare walks. And what are the practices, like, whether you follow a track, should you do combing, whether you should do a line transect kind of a search. So you have to decide depending on the terrain, and there will be seasonal differences, like monsoon season, whether they put snares or not, or winter, or so there are differences in various seasons. So ensure that you know that also, so in search for snares. And then you will find indirect evidences, like the photograph here is that the sugarcane field, there is a lot of disturbance, there is a lot of struggle, and there is a lot of marks on the ground. So that's a clear evidence that some animal was killed there, but we don't have direct evidence of a snare or an animal there, but that there is something happened. So that's one thing. Then other thing is that when you do these things, please, once you understand snaring in a landscape, then please share the learnings with other people. Like, you set up a small team, you've done some anti-snare walks, you removed some snares, and whatever you learn in the field, please ensure that you talk to other people. Like, for example, this is actually a photograph taken from Central India. During the day, you will find these branches which are small pegs which are kept on the ground. There will be no wires, nothing. But by evening they put this wire. So when you see these pegs on a straight line with a little plastic, like a polythene bag tied to it, then please understand that in the evening they will be putting electric wire there, because they remove the wire during the day because they don't want anybody to get killed during the day, or get anybody to notice this. But in the evening they come and put this wires back, and once we found a bulb attached to one of these lines. So we asked the landowner, because for him it is a natural thing. He said that I'm putting it to protect my crop, and he said, oh, this is for everybody to know that my electric line is on. This is like a 500 meter probably, or minimum of 400 meter. I remember that long line, and a couple of farmers. So what they have done is that one of them will set up the whole thing, and then they will connect this bulb to the line, so that they all know that the line is charged and it is live. So to warn human beings, but animals will not look at this light, and they will understand the line is on. So that's the thing, that whatever you learn in the field, you should be shared with people. And when and where to deploy your teams, and and what are the indicators which you're finding in the ground level that there are traps and snares are used. For example, if you're finding information about bushmeat trade, increase the bushmeat trade in a particular local area, then probably you should use your informers and people on the ground to find out that how they are hunting. So that is when you will understand that, okay, they're setting up traps or snares to capture animals. The other problem is that, okay, fine, you've done all these things, but you have animals which are caught in snares. So if you initiate good anti-snare walks and removal of snares, one of the major challenges many forest departments across the country face is that once you have a live animal in a snare, how to handle that animal. I mean, you go to YouTube, you just search in Google, animal caught in snare or live animal caught in snare. You will find a lot of videos from India, especially videos of leopards doing rounds. Like leopards are caught in snares and they're not dead, and people are going there and trying to rescue. Be prepared when you are going for an anti-snare walk. You please assume that there may be an animal which is caught in snare. So you should have a backup plan that if you find an animal which is live and in snare, how to remove it. You cannot just go and capture an animal by its neck. You need to be very, very, very careful about capturing animals. Like this particular leopard, which was without even sedating, they were trying to remove the trap from the leopard using crude force. This kind of situations, the animal may die at the end of the whole procedure. Your intention was great. You wanted to remove the animal, save the animal from the trap, but you could not because you never had the backup plan to, proper thing like, tranquilizing the animal and then removing the trap. So we have to train our frontline staff to, deal with the safe rescue methods also, because not always you will find a civet cat or a squirrel in snare. You may find a tiger or a leopard in snare, and then you should be prepared to deal with that. Sometimes, you find, the traps and the snares are kept, and you may think that it is a stray incident that somebody put it by chance or it's a local, but, try to investigate whether there is a involvement of organized criminal gangs in that area. Don't always think that, many people say that snaring is always done by locals. No, may not be. In some situations, you may find that there are involvement of outsiders who are organized tiger poachers or, leopard poachers who are involved. So whenever you find an incident of snaring, please do a bit of a forward and a backward investigation. Talk to people in the neighboring area or in the neighborhood or villages and try to find some information. So you may find that there are outsiders who came and put snares, because some type of snares and some types of installation of snares and traps are signatory works of, tiger poachers or leopard poachers. I am very happy and very, very proud to say that, in last 4 or 5 years, with the efforts by Forest Department and the Wildlife Crime Control Bureau centrally, the problems of this organized tiger poaching gangs has come down a lot. But we should always be prepared to meet any kind of emergencies which happens. And also we should ensure that there is preventive intelligence gathering, like there should be a very good rapport with the local community. That is very important. Not only Forest Department but civil society organizations can do this a lot, because many times civil society organizations has a larger presence in the villages around. So they should ensure that this is one of their focus area, that what is happening with the criminal activities. Is there a stranger coming and staying in the village, or is there somebody selling illegal wildlife products like meat or body parts of animal in the village? You should be able to set up a mechanism where you get the regular information about this kind of activities in the village. So it's very important. Don't just look at snaring as a stray incident. And finally, it's anti-snare walks are an enforcement activity. So many times, government agencies. This happily, I should say that this first photograph is from Maharashtra. I think it's about 7-8 years back. This photograph. You can look at the amount of GI wires or copper wires which are confiscated from farmlands, where people were using it to protect crops. They were claiming that this is to protect crop, but this is a potential death trap for wildlife. So it is good, even if it is enforcement, it is good to engage a civil society people, because they will have a softer approach with villages. But whenever force is necessary, the Forest Department can use force. Recently, again, another good example from Valmiki Tiger Reserve, the SSB of the Indo-Nepal border security force actually assisted the Forest Department to remove traps and snares from the fields, because Forest Department was not able to use anti-snare walk because of various situations. So you can bring in other enforcement agencies, you can bring in NGOs, and of course NGOs and Forest Department should work together. They should understand that there are sensitive information which is coming from this walks, and there should be higher levels of ethics and transparency parties who are doing this kind of activities to ensure that this goes for a long time. Of course, that's the final thing, that snaring cannot be stopped or electrocution cannot be stopped overnight. You should have a long-term plan, like for example, the Karnataka State Forest Department, after successful anti-snare walks and various tiger reserves, they incorporated anti-snare walks into their management plans about 3 or 4 years back. So that became part of their management plan, that every tiger reserve, every area will have a definite anti-snare walk plan, and they will keep on removing snare. Finally, the legal matters. As per the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, weapon is anything, includes ammunition, bows, arrows, and nets, poison, snares. So any equipment, any apparatus which is used to capture an animal is considered as a weapon, and it should be reported to forest department. And if possible, I will say in many cases it is not possible. Excuse me. Okay, there was some disturbance. I'm sorry. So that's something very important. We should ensure that wherever it is possible to book a case against people who are putting snares under the provisions of the Wildlife Protection Act, because the Act is very clearly defining snares, and snares or even this weapon can be used. Even electric wire can be brought in under the definition of the weapon, and the cases should be booked as and when it is possible. There may be some practical difficulties, but it's advisable. It is good to register some cases against suspects who are engaged in this activities, and that should be there. And finally, what's the way forward? I mean, a few good practices, like every snare is removed is GPS tagged. Like, for example, there's a map of a tiger reserve and anti-snare walks, and wherever snares were removed, it is mapped so that that these are the areas where you will find the snares again and again. And over a period of time, the number of snares removed from this walk should come down, and that will indicate that the practices of snaring has come down. And also you will know that which areas you walk, which areas you haven't. So you can create sensitive areas, and you can use surveillance, like installation of camera traps in key areas where you find the snares are very common. Then you should be able to. There are forest department staff who installed camera traps on the trees, putting it downward to take photographs of people who entered into the forest with weapons. So that's possible. And another interesting thing sometimes, which these are the innovative things. I'm sorry, I don't have the photograph here. Some places where they removed snares, they put a small note there on a cardboard thing, that आपने जो snare लगाया था हमने निकाल दिया है और आप अगली बार रखोगे आप पकड़े जाओगे. So it's like an open challenge. Tell people that your activities are being monitored, and always get local people who are who done snaring. I mean, your habitual offenders who are reformed to act as informers or local help. That's very, very, very good. And of course, there is a need for strong support from the senior staff. Sometimes when you remove a lot of snares, it should not be considered as a weakness in the department. Senior officers should always congratulate juniors who actually remove snares, because detecting snares is not a weakness. Detecting snares is actually a positive thing, and they should, over a period of time, they should reduce the number of snares. So that's very important, and definitely there should be plan for anti-snare walks. And finally, a lot of community awareness. These are the kind of materials which we are using in various parts, like very powerful, very simple communication methods, with community, saying that putting snares are not good. And the final one is like a clear-cut communication, telling people that if you put an animal in snare, you may also get into a different kind of snare. And again, very proudly and happily say that this artwork is done by a few youngsters from Maharashtra, from Mumbai. And so these are the kind of things which we can use for reducing snaring in villages. And again, this is another communication method which we use, like a comic book, which is installed as a poster in schools, so that kids learn about the dangers of snaring. And finally, if there are any discussion points, we can discuss that. That's it. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the opportunity. And I leave to the organizers for questions, if it is right now or later. So that's all. Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be here. And Dr. Nagpurkar, I'm very happy to meet you after a long time. I don't know whether you remember me. We met long time back.
Thank you very much.
Very happy to see you.
Okay.
Again. And thank you very much.
Sir, one thing that I must want to clear here. Hello, am I audible, sir? Hello?
Yes.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Since
Yes, sir,
you
you
are
are
involved in capacity building program of the wildlife department and the civil society, and constantly throughout the India, you are involved in just making the awareness program as far as the wildlife crime control is concerned. So in this case, as far as the snare is concerned, so in tribal belt or the most of the villages, people are commonly involved in this kind of practices. But most of the time, the information remains secret. The people also won't create, they cooperate just so regarding to combat the situation and to increase the conviction rate. So is there any provision that we could do like the combing operation or home to home operation, etc.? So what are the provisions that we could make?
Sir, one of the approach which we have done is in UP, we initiated a thing known as V3 volunteers, village vigilance volunteers. We engaged with local youngsters. It's a very slow process. You have to talk to them, you have to work with them, you have to engage them in various activities, and then take them for a couple of patrolling, and that is becoming a very effective anti-poaching or anti-snaring activity, that this village youth come forward and they help you. And interestingly, not even a single person is paid anything. It is a simple thing. It is a psychological approach, or it's a community oriented approach, which I am not a community expert, but it is some of my colleagues who are community expert devised this plan, but it really worked. It is basically recognizing them. For example, I have seen a DFO walking into a village and, sitting with the youngsters in the evening for chai nasta and talking about, problems, instead of being an absolute officer. But this was facilitated by an NGO on the ground, that the DFO comes and, DFO interact with the youngsters. And then the range officer enters into the picture, and the range officers take, assign some staff and do a little bit of an anti-snare walk or a perambulation. And the whole thing of the pride factor worked. These selected youngsters felt that they are special, that, they are very important with the forest department. But that's a very carefully crafted thing. Like behind this, there is a selection process. You will look at, all the people, and sometimes the biggest problem makers become the biggest helping hands. Like, people who are creating problems in the community became your helping hand. This is a very proven, thing which we experimented in Karnataka, we experimented in UP, and now in Bihar, and we are tasting good success. Find some youngsters from the village and engage them with your conservation activity. And not only, when you do a conservation activity, but also, as this is a kind of a closed platform, I can say that, invite some of this good boys for a, Republic Day function and give them a small certificate. That certificate will cost you what, 15 rupee, 20 rupee. But for them, it's a very, very big recognition in front of the public that, DFO साहब मुझे बुलाया है और सर्टिफिकेट दिलाया है और उनके साथ बैठ के मैंने चाय पी के आया. So then he cannot go against you in the community. And also, if you ask me, it's also a different kind of psychological approach with potential criminals, that you disable them in a way that these people are seen with the DFOs in a public function, and even if they were involved in a criminal activity, their earlier associate will try to keep a distance from them, because they will think that अरे यार आपको तो मैंने 4 दिन पहले तो DFO साहब के साथ बात करते हुए देखा था, नहीं आपके साथ अभी कुछ काम नहीं कर सकते हैं. So this is a very systematic approach of disintegrating criminal activities in the fringes. And also I believe that if you want to do conservation in India, where we have mosaics of villages and forest patches, we need people who are living on the outskirts of the forest to support you. If the moment they are against you, they will put poison, they will put electrocution, they will keep open wells, and they will make your life difficult for a conservation. I can see Ramanujan sir nodding his head, because definitely these are the problems which you will face. So we need
yes. Luisa, we are very much thankful to you for giving a very wonderful lecture. I know you are good in handling this crime, and you are developed very good crime data, also wildlife crime data. Actually, yes, it is most neglected subject, I can say. For last 2 years only, now we have started constant snaring, anti-snare drives also. Actually, I'm holding additional charge of Pinch Tiger Reserve. I know what happened in this case. You have shown me the Times of India clip now. That they have one tiger with snare. Tigress. Actually, it's not tiger. Tigress is snare. I have visited that spot also. The place from where the camera trap was captured, it is just 1 kilometer from the agriculture field nearby. Okay. We suspect that agriculture land owner or somebody else would have tried to snare it. Snare a bushmeat or bushmeat, they would have kept it. It's really becoming a huge challenging task for us. As you have mentioned it very clearly, we should try for preventive intelligence care. We are very poor in it, and now we are trying to develop it as much as possible. We are convincing our STPF staffs, Special Tiger Protection Force, and around 20 to 25 watchers are also there. They are not guides, they are forest watchers, but they are drawing the salary of guards. They are recruited from the local area. For example, for NNT or STPF, we are recruiting them from Bandara and Gondia district, not from other districts. So they are local boys and girls. They have very good connectivity. We are trying to encourage them to give valuable information. They can act as a very good informer. So we could succeed in some cases, but we cannot succeed in so many cases. So NGOs also, they can give input. Now what I am feeling is, now after seeing your presentation, I will request you to make presentation before our rangers and a few selected forester and guides and our deputy directors from both Pench and NNTR. As I'm holding additional Pench Tigers, definitely I will conduct a online conference. Please, you should give valuable inputs for all our staffs. In Hindi, we chalenga. I think you know Hindi also. So, but definitely, because now we are focusing more on electrocution, snare ke bare mein, abhi just after that case of snaring of the tigers, then we have formed 15 teams. We have covered almost 30 villages. We have seized snares also in the anti-snare drive. Really, it's a very good exercise. We should do it. We should concentrate more on that direction. Please address our people, address our officers and staffs. We will be very much thankful to you. And it will go a long way in wildlife conservation also. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Ji, sir, because we are already having conversation with the Honorable Chief Wildlife Warden, sir, on various wildlife crime related activities, and this will be one of the things which will be undertaken, and we'll be more than happy to come there and walk in the field with your staff and do a training session. We'll take it forward, sir. We got Prafulla ji and Mahinder is there, so we will definitely take it up.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for sharing your views about snake hunting. And you have explained the different ways of snares by which population of forest animal is declining. So we should really need to investigate sharing, snaring and trapping event beyond this level. So once again, thank you so much. I think you have elaborated all each and everything very nicely and in detail. So there is no question at all. So once again, thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Then now I take this opportunity to introduce our resource person for today's technical session 2 is Dr. Suresh Kumar, Scientist E, Wildlife Institute, Dehradun. He is a wildlife biologist and his primary interest is in research on lesser known and threatened fauna, their ecology and conservation. He is currently working as a senior scientist in the Department of Endangered Species Management at the Wildlife Institute of India. He provides advisory to the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India and State Forest Departments. His current research include migration and movement of studies of Amur falcons in Northeast India, migratory crane and flamingos in Gujarat, spot-billed pelicans in Karnataka, on the long-distance migratory barn swallows and pied cuckoo along with the house sparrow in Uttarakhand. Recently, he has initiated a study to take the migration of olive ridley sea turtle along the Maharashtra coast. So with this determination, now I invite Dr. Suresh Kumar sir to deliver his presentation on bird migration in India. Sir, please.
Thank you, madam, for the invitation, and thanks to you as well as Dr. Nagpurkar, who contacted me and requested me for this meeting, this online meeting. And it's a fantastic opportunity for me to present some stories about what we do. And I see there's a large number of participants, and I'm going to be basically telling some stories so that I can influence a lot more people through this medium today and about our understanding of birds. I understand this is right in the lunch break, almost 1 o'clock, and I'm hoping that my stories don't, I mean, keep people glued to their seats and listen to the stories about the birds that I've been working on. So without wasting much time, I will go into my presentation. Let me tell you that I have about 45 to 50 slides, but I will try to do a marathon presentation as quickly as possible. So please bear with me. This is also the problem when somebody has to do the last presentation of the day. So I'm sharing my screen with you now, and I hope that we don't face any problems with this. Is my screen visible to you, madam?
No, sir, your screen is not visible.
Just give me a minute. Is it visible now, madam?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is visible now.
Okay, so without wasting much time, let me go into my presentation. I want to start off with this map, which talks about the protected area network. So, I mean, we have an amazing country, and we have a very large number of protected area network. If you compare it with many other parts of the world, Southeast Asia, as well as in many other parts of Asia or Africa for that matter. So we are doing fantastically well when it comes to protecting our wildernesses as well as the species. But including there are about 46 Ramsar wetland sites which are focusing a lot on migratory birds and that come into India for a very short period of time and then return back to the respective areas from where they come. So it's fantastic when you see an image like this and that, but is it enough is always a question. And especially when it comes to birds, they could just use the entire landscape. They would use all sorts of wetlands which are protected, non-protected, and so it may not be enough and actually calls for a much a bigger role of not only just protected area managers but from other ministries and whole lot of other stakeholders. But above all, most importantly, is that we need to understand these species. We need to know very well as to how they use these landscapes. And when I talk about that, it's extremely important to know about their fine scale movements and migration. That's where the story comes in. This is a very important document, which is a State of India's Birds report that was launched in 2020, which gave a very detailed insights about what is happening with birds in the country. It also talks about migratory birds, resident birds, raptors, water birds. And sadly, there is a lot of species that are in steep decline. And we still don't understand whether these declines are associated with this, what is happening at the local scale, or is it across the range. There is a lot of information which says that many of these species which breed in the northern latitudes, those habitats, those wildernesses are still intact, but still the populations are declining. So which is primarily then that the species which use the non-breeding range or in their wintering grounds are faced with a lot of threats. So tropical countries like India, in many parts of Southeast Asia as well as Africa, there are issues relating to habitat degradation or wetland loss, which is actually driving it. In countries like Africa as well as Southeast Asia, there is a lot of issues relating to hunting. A very minuscule, a problem this is with regard to hunting of these migratory birds that happens in our country too. But this is definitely a challenge. So there is a lot of information that is coming in to clearly say that a lot of these species are declining and something really, really needs to be done. And one of the other serious issues that we are facing is relating to disease outbreaks in migratory birds, and we've been facing the corona issue, over the last 3 years now, and so has been this other issues like bird flu, which can even transmit to humans. So these are all happening primarily because humans per se are altering landscapes and changing what's happening in the environment. And so definitely there is a role of humans in all of this. And understanding all of these becomes extremely important. And especially when it comes to migratory birds, which are also acting as carriers of these diseases. So it becomes a major, major challenge. So all of this calls for concerted actions. It's not just a few people taking up this task and trying to understand or manage these issues, but it actually calls for concerted actions. And India is not far behind in that when we are talking about migratory birds. So India launched the National Action Plan for Conservation of Migratory Birds and Their Habitats along the Central Asian Flyway. So the Central Asian Flyway is a very large region, which story I will come to a little later. But this is a 5-year national action plan, which actually calls for concerted actions within the country as well as across the Central Asian Flyway region. So no doubt that all of this is extremely important, and one of the very key important aspects of concerted action is to actually understand migration of many of these birds that use this flyway. So I'm going to be sharing with you snippets about bird migration, what is our understanding of it, and there's some really, really interesting aspects which also links to us about how climate change may be impacting some of these species. And as you all do agree with me, climate change is actually also partly, or rather being accelerated by humans at the current times. So with that, we move on to some stories. So this is definitely a site that very of you are very familiar with, over a wetland, over a terrestrial landscape. You often see large number of birds gathering at a certain period of time. You know that, hey, these birds were not there the previous month and they've just arrived. So you know that these birds are coming from somewhere, but from where? So in order to understand this, you need to understand these birds by using tracking devices, by actually understanding their fine scale movements. Without that, it's going to be a big challenge for anyone to manage their populations. So migration, birds are actually amongst the most successful of all taxa that you're very familiar. And there are major expressways and highways and flyways all across the globe, and all sorts of species migrate from one corner of the earth to the other corner of the earth. So, and it involves incredible migrations. I will tell you some of those examples. And India is no far behind. We do have some spectacular examples of birds that undertake these migration. The question is, why are they doing this? Okay,
Sir,
so you might
me, the slide is not moving.
Oh God, we are going to have a problem then. Okay, sir. So in that case, what I will do is, I'm not going to do a slideshow, but rather, I think it is more to do with the slideshow. I'm just going to keep it in the screen as such. Okay. I will have to run it like this. Is this fine? Can you see the screen now? One second. This is often a problem that we face with Okay, I'm not going to do a slideshow mode. I'm just going to run the presentation as such. Is that fine? Yes, please. I'm extremely sorry about this. Unfortunately, we do face this kind of a challenge. Okay, so what I was basically trying to say is that there's a large number of bird species that do migrate to India, and they do make some incredible migrations, a majority of which we still don't understand their movements. And so through the presentation today, I will share with you some of the screen. This is one species that I wanted. It's an animated image. It's the Blythe's reed warbler. I'm just trying to show you this example because all of the world's population of the Blight's reed warbler, which breeds in Europe, they all winter in India. So you can imagine India being such an important area for this particular species, which is actually a globe traveler, you can say. And so there are many examples of migrant birds which make incredible migrations and which move from one part of the world to the other. And there are a few examples that I would like to take for you. This is a world record holder in terms of non-stop flights. This particular species is known as the bar-tailed godwit. We do have the populations of this species coming to India, but this particular example is of a different population that primarily occurs in the Pacific region. It breeds in Alaska and goes down all the way to New Zealand. It covers a distance of close to 13,000 kilometers in 12 days or close to 12 days. And this is a non-stop flight. And on its return migration, it takes a different route whereby it makes a multiple stopovers before returning back to their breeding grounds. So the question is, why are they doing these non-stop flights? And why on the return journey, they're taking a different route? Another record holder is the bar-headed goose. I'm sure many of you in Gondia region are very, very familiar with, because this species uses a lot of wetlands in central India. This particular species is very famous for its record of flying across the Himalayas, directly crossing the Himalayas, really high mountain ranges where the oxygen level is very, very low. So why do these birds risk themselves so much to fly across this? Of course, they are adapted to do this. But the interesting thing is that as to how do they manage, there must be certain strategies that they would be adopting. So this with these examples, you always have this is not just these two, there are many other species, which leaves you with this question. Any naturalist, any biologist or a manager, why do they do this, or how are they able to do this? Is this a question? So when you talk about migration, why are they migrating from one place to another becomes a question. Now, this was again an animation. Maybe I'll just try if this does work. Yeah, it does work. So you can actually see that this is the polar ice caps in the north and the snow cover. As it declines, you will see a lot of birds migrating back to the northern region. So in the summer, in the northern latitudes, the day length is very, very long. Day length being very long would mean there's a lot of food available. So birds have evolved this strategy to be there in those places where there is a lot of food during the breeding season, and so they can raise their young much more better than in the tropical region or elsewhere. So again, with the onset of the snow, the polar ice caps expanding during winter, you would see that the birds return back down to the lower latitudes. So in this process, a lot of species are actually crossing the equator 2 times in a year. So they are also moving between one continent like Asia to Africa. And in this process, there are certain migratory corridors through which they funnel through. So this is something, the one of the major reason is that the resources on Earth fluctuate driven by seasons, leading to long day length. And so birds are actually benefiting by moving from one place to another. Now, coming to the Central Asian Flyway region, so birds come from different parts of this region. It includes about 30 countries, and a lot of these birds breed high up here in the Russian and the Mongolian region, and then come down to winter in India. They come in primarily from the west. Some species are adapted to fly across the Himalayas, like the bar-headed goose, and then a few come in through the east. So if you talk about migration to India, the Himalayas has a big role in it. The Himalayas has actually blocked the the cold winds that's coming in or blowing in from the north. As a result, leaving much of the Indian region very warm and subtropical in climes. So which is one of the reasons why many of these birds escaping from the cold, harsh climates are coming and benefiting by coming into India and using the landscape. So for today's presentation, I would be talking a lot about monsoon. Many of these birds which are making these long distance migrations are, flying nonstop across oceans or bay or, the seas are actually are using these monsoons. So monsoon has a big role. So if you talk about the Himalayas is actually influencing the monsoon. So there are a lot of complex complex stories in how birds are actually, using this. I will tell you about the details. So for today's presentation, I have three species that I'm going to take as an example. And the first will be the pied cuckoo, which is a summer visitor, comes to India during the summer months. And then there is a winter visitor, which is the common crane. And lastly, there is one particular species known as the Amur falcon, which is a passage migrant. It comes into India for a short while, but this is not the final destination. It goes elsewhere. And all of these species also are there in the Gondia region. They do come. So that's why I've chosen these examples to narrate my story today. So starting with the pied cuckoo, it's a summer visitor. It's a harbinger of the monsoon. It's very popular in our Indian folklore, particularly in the northern Indian folklore. It is believed that this bird actually brings the southwest monsoon. In fact, in some parts of the northern Indian region, the local farmers wait for this bird to come. As soon as it arrives, it starts to call, and it indicates that the monsoon will be very soon, and they actually start plowing their fields. So there is very little that we know about these birds. In fact, where do they come from? And if you look at this map, you can see that the species occurs all over India, but the northern populations are migratory. It's suspected there is a population in southern India which is resident. So is the case in Africa. There is a population which is resident, whereas another population which is migratory. So again, a lot of interesting questions as to why one population does not migrate and another actually migrates. So we'll not have much time to talk about it, but what is also very, very interesting is that we believe the northern Indian populations come from Africa. So the migrant population that is being talked about in Africa is possibly the same population that is coming to northern India. So unless and until we do a tracking study, we wouldn't know about their migratory route or prove the point that yes, in fact, they come from Africa. Now, what is also interesting about this bird is that this is a brood parasite. It does not make its own nest and incubate its young. It rather depends on another resident species, which is the commonly occurring jungle babbler, to raise its young. There are a few other hosts also. So it's very, very interesting as to why this particular species, which is a migrant coming all the way from Africa, supposedly, would nest in somebody else's nest and let the young to be raised by them and go back. So yes, so these are interesting strategies. Will not be able to go into the details of that. Tracking this bird comes with its challenges. So advanced technology is the need of the hour, and thankfully there is a transmitter which is tracked using satellites, and weighing as low as 2 grams that we could deploy on 2 of these birds. And one of the birds, it was not a very successful study because the transmitter stopped working, but one of the birds did migrate all the way from Dehradun, come to Maharashtra, and used areas along Kolhapur, and then did go into the Arabian Sea, heading towards Africa, where it actually stopped in the middle of the Arabian Sea. So indicating that, yes, it is true that this particular species is coming from there. So this is a summer visitor. And what we know now is that with the receding of the southwest monsoon, this bird actually starts to return back from there. And its migration over the Arabian Sea is actually facilitated by the northeast monsoon winds, which story I will be sharing with you a little later. Moving on to the next bird, which is the winter visitor, which is the common crane. This is the species which actually occurs over a much larger region in the northern latitudes, and it's currently a least concern species. This is not threatened species. They are there still in very, very large numbers when you talk about it from the northern latitudes. But you please look at the areas where they actually winter in India as well as in Africa. These are again very, very small areas where they actually occur. In Gujarat, there are only few sites where you will see them in very large numbers. So these wetlands, these areas where they forage, become extremely important for them to build back resources and go back to their breeding areas and start on their migration. In Gujarat, they occur in landscape like this. We face a major challenge of prosopis, which is an exotic species, invasive tree species, a small tree species, which is invading into many of these grasslands. And this species uses Gujarat because it almost mimics the temperate grasslands where they actually breed. However, this is a big, big challenge of maintaining these grasslands. So these birds would forage over much larger areas, but when it comes to roost, there is just a few select wetlands where they would roost. They are also faced with this challenge of power lines. Everyone needs energy. There is increasing power line network across the country, and large birds like these do face the challenge of colliding with these power lines and dying. So we started on a project to understand how these birds use this landscape and how they are actually navigating across these power lines. And it was also to understand how they where are they actually coming from, and how what are the breeding areas. So this map, we've been successful in understanding their one particular individual migrating all the way to northern Kazakhstan and then returning back to Gujarat, a whole year of tracking. This almost in the same longitude, but this is the temperate grassland. This is a steppe landscape, which is this is a subtropical grassland or something very similar, mimicking a steppe landscape. So these are the areas where they actually breed. But even in these remote areas, you would see that there is highly mechanized farming that is taking place, and their natural grasslands are definitely being altered and are being influenced. So moving on to the next species, which is the Amur falcon, which actually migrates into India through the northeast, unlike the other examples of the common crane, which is coming from the western part of India. So the Amur falcon actually is a passage migrant, like I had told you earlier. This breeds in the Amur region. This is also the region where your Amur tigers occur. And this is also the area from where the tigers actually evolved, and then subsequently in the evolutionary time they have moved into India and other parts of Southeast Asia. So there is a river by name Amur, which actually is at the trijunction of Mongolia, China, and Russia. And it is after this river that the Amur tiger or the Amur leopard or the Amur falcon got their name. And so what is interesting about this species is that it breeds in this area and goes down all the way to southern Africa, and as a result it crosses the equator. So why is this particular species moving between these two sites even after passing through India? Why can't it winter in India? Why does it not why can't it stop over here in India? Why should it go all the way down to Africa? So this is something very, very interesting, and we started this program known as the Amur Falcon Conservation Initiative. It's a collaborative initiative with the Forest Department and other agencies. And this particular project was initiated back in 2013. In 2012, there was a massive hunting, which many of you would have heard about, that hunting in Nagaland. So it was also an opportunity for us to create awareness among people by telling them, yes, see, these birds come from this particular region. Very often we go about telling story that the birds come from Siberia or come from some other parts of the world. But how would you communicate, or how would you ask the people to understand this when they don't even know what is beyond their mountain range in these remote places? So tracking such species and showing them visuals of where they actually can come from is a very important tool, or a medium to create awareness. So that is the reason behind starting this project. But in the process, we ended up generating huge amounts of information, scientific knowledge about the species and the migration and the fine scale movements. Today, we know Nagaland as well as Manipur as the falcon capital of the world. Every dot in this image that you see are Amur falcons. In fact, 360-degree view would be Amur falcons. And as we know today, a lot of these birds are in fact migrating over Gondia district and Maharashtra and going across towards the Arabian Sea, both onward as well as their return migration. So again, here to track this bird was a major challenge, simply because it's a very small bodied bird weighing only about 180 grams. So again here, satellite tracking technology came into use. And on the 7th of November 2013, we tagged our first bird and gave us very interesting insights on what they actually do. This particular first individual that we tagged and released, after a few days, on the 10th of November 2013, it set out on its migration. It did a 1,000-kilometer long distance flight straight from Nagaland over the Bay of Bengal, cut across southern Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, through Maharashtra, and then entered into Arabian Sea and flew all the way down to Somalia. And this was about 5,600 kilometers, and it did this flight in 5 days, 10 hours. So the first question comes to our mind is that why is this bird making non-stop flight? It could have very well stopped over in Maharashtra Maharashtra or other terrestrial areas that it is passing through, but that's not the case. Now, having said this, with our subsequent tracking efforts, we found that a few birds do make a stop, but just for for a night or two, and then the next day they leave on their migration. What we also understood is that on the return, on the onward migration, that is on their southward migration, they would go from Nagaland all the way in this line to Somalia and do this non-stop flight. But on arriving in Somalia, they will change their behavior and then make gradual flights all the way to Africa. And as I speak now, one of the tagged birds, we have tagged about 15 birds so far, and one of the tagged birds continues to be active, and it is right now in South Africa, going back again and again to the same site, showing high site fidelity. Then by mid of April, they return back to Somalia. And now here, interestingly, not take the same route back through in the southern bound route, that instead fly along the Arabian Peninsula and go back towards Northeast India, and this time not stop in Northeast India and head back to their breeding grounds. Now, it again in the breeding grounds, they show very high site fidelity, that is almost going back to that same tree to nest in these areas. Now, let me also share with you an interesting insight. These birds again don't make their own nest, but of course do lay their eggs and incubate. They do take care of it, but just that they don't make their own nest. Now, in this landscape, in this area, this is known as the Manchurian steppe or the eastern steppe landscape. Here, the Amur falcons, by the time they arrive here, there is another species known as the rook, which is related to the crows, which nest, and they finish their nesting much before the Amurs arrive. So these birds go back and use the abandoned nests of those birds. So the Amur falcon survival is actually dependent on the survival of the rook. And so that becomes extremely important. So you're talking about 1 million Amur falcons passing through India. Even if you say 50% of these birds go back to breed, then you're having so many rooks in that area that make their nest, and these birds are dependent on that. Now, I'm just going to share with you the story as to why they are passing through Maharashtra, Karnataka, and going down to Somalia, but their final destination is South Africa. So why don't they take a route in this direction straight away going to South Africa? There are probably a few individuals which are doing that, but this bird is extremely smart, because from Maharashtra along that coast, or Karnataka along that coastline, to Africa, forget about Somalia, but to Africa, the shortest is this Great Horn of Africa. And you also need to consider the curvature of the earth. So if they fly to Somalia, then it is only 3,500 kilometers distant. But if they are taking a flight directly to South Africa, then they will have to fly as long as 7,000 kilometers. So this is a very, very long distance, and possibly very difficult for most birds. But there is still yet another story. Apart from the distances, there is yet another story, and that is the monsoon connection. So what is it about the monsoon connection? I'll explain to you a little bit better. Now, taking the example of one bird, if you, unfortunately, I'm not able to show you the animation, but if you take the example of one individual, every year we were able to track some of these birds for more than 3 years, 4 years. So every year when this bird on its way down south towards Somalia, the path was almost congruent, very, very similar. Now, during this time, that is mid-October to mid-November, or mid-November when it is making this crossing, what we actually noticed is that there is a wind which is oriented in this direction. This wind is nothing but the northeast monsoon, or the returning monsoon, which actually originates in Nagaland and then goes down towards in this direction. And then in the Arabian Sea, it builds up speed and the intensity and goes into Africa as the easterly winds, and actually becomes the monsoon winds for Africa. Now, when the Amur falcon is making this crossing, it is flying at a speed of 45 kilometers per hour. But with the benefit of this tailwind, it is actually flying at a speed of 20 kilometers per hour, because there is a tailwind of 20 kilometers per hour. So extremely smart bird, and it has to just glide onto the winds, and the winds are oriented in such a direction that it takes them straight into Somalia. And so there is no need for them to stop over and just sail or glide with these winds. Now, what happens in mid-April when they are on the return migration? They are flying along the Arabian Peninsula, coming into the northern Indian region. At this point of time, time, you all know that the monsoon is not active, because the monsoon is well another 2 months away. Only by end of June or middle of June that the monsoon will arrive. These birds cannot wait till then, because they have to fly all the way up to the northern latitudes where they will breed. So they actually arrive in their breeding grounds by mid-June. So when they arrive in Somalia in mid-April, there again they are faced with this challenge of wind. But like I told you, they're extremely smart birds. What you will notice is that there are these hot winds during summer which actually comes in from western India. In fact, the hot westerly winds from Rajasthan are playing a big role. So these birds actually use those winds, and so because of the orientation of the winds to the northern areas, so that is why they are making an elliptical migration or taking a different route on their migration. So lastly, this is what I was almost concluding, that this is what the birds do. But one particular individual that I was also tracking for a long time, it did take the elliptical migration, but it came down to southern India on its return migration, and then goes up towards northeast and return back to the northern area. So there is always exceptions to these stories. But what is also very interesting about this particular individual that we got data was that every time it came to southern India, there was a cyclone prediction in the Bay of Bengal. So there was a depression. What it means is that when there is a cyclonic depression, usually these drier parts of southern India, there is a lot of rain. There is a sporadic amount of rain, and with rain, there is some food available. So this bird is actually able to sense about cyclonic activity or rainfall activity in these areas. Now, what is also interesting that we found is that they would arrive at the time when the cyclone arrives and stop, wait for the cyclone to make landfall. As soon as the cyclone makes landfall, it would use the tailwinds of the cyclone to fuel up or speed up their flight across the across to northeast India. So incredible birds, they seem to know much more. And so today for me, actually, the Amur falcons are actually acting as a very good model to predict cyclones, and it's almost seems to be true. In one year, one of the other birds that I was tracking, it was cyclone Amphan. When the cyclone Amphan was moving up, this bird had arrived in Odisha, and then sensing that the cyclone is almost in its path, it actually flew back into Chhattisgarh 200 kilometers to wait out for the cyclone to make landfall. And once the landfall was made, the bird was again quick to come back and catch up with those tailwinds and move up to northeast India. So incredible stories. This is the Amur falcon breeding area in northern China, where they breed north of Beijing, 500 kilometers north of Beijing, a very heavily mechanized farming region. We really don't know how these are affecting these species. Now, coming to the question, last few slides, coming to the question of why the common crane, which breeds in the western steppe, comes down to Gujarat and not go further. Of course, they do go to other parts of India, but why are they not going down or across the equator? Why is it that the Amur falcon coming from eastern steppe, coming into India as a passage migrant and actually crossing all across the equator and going down to Africa? Now, the reason is that in the case of the Amur falcon, when they actually cross the equator and go down to southern Africa, please understand that when it is northern summer in the northern hemisphere, it is winter in the southern hemisphere. So from the northern areas, when they start on their migration just before winter, and when they arrive in the southern hemisphere, the northern areas become winter and the southern area becomes summer. So here is a species which never sees winter. It is always flying up and down to actually capture summer, and summer means lot of food, and so naturally these birds occur in such large numbers, and so it's always there in resource rich areas. But there are few other things which also govern these differential migration patterns that we see. One is the ecological barrier. For large bodied birds like cranes, the oceans are a huge barrier. They simply cannot fly such long distance or cannot sustain flights for such long distance, so it becomes a challenge. Then the body size and flight behavior is again associated with those ecological barriers. The cranes will stop every night. They cannot continue to fly 2 days, 3 days together. So they will stop by night. They will roost the night, and then again leave early morning to fly. Diet is something again very, very important. If that is the kind of food that is available in this area, they would very well stop here, feed, and then go back back? Why would they have to make an additional effort of going all the way to further south? So diet, when I say diet, this is where the role of how humans are changing landscapes and how these are influencing species that have evolved to use these landscapes in the long run. Mechanized farming, even in the case of Gujarat, biodiesel, cash crop cultivation, these are all changing landscapes and so would be influencing. In the case of the pied cuckoo as well as the Amur falcons, their breeding areas are actually dictated by presence of hosts. So the jungle babbler, for some reason, if their populations start to decline, these would have influences on species which are actually dependent on them. So there are multiple strategies, and so as a result, you see these migration patterns. So sum it up, tracking fine-scale movements and migrations of avian species across India becomes extremely important to if you really want to understand climate change impacts or how climate variability is shaping the movements or migrations of these species. And like some of the examples I cited to you, understanding these birds migrations can actually throw insights on how our the earth's climate is actually changing. So with that I will end my talk. Thank you for the goof up with my presentation relating to my slides. I'm extremely sorry about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your valuable information on this bird migration. Sir has explained the distribution and migration strategies of birds for the several reasons. So thank you once again, sir. Thank you very much. Now it's time to question hour. Sir, there is only one question. Are there any ecological implications with migration? Hello, sir.
Yes, madam. Yes. Is someone trying to ask that question again, or?
Only one question is there.
Yes.
Yeah, the question is, are there any ecological implications with migration?
Ecological implications in what sense would they mean? Do they mean to say that
in relation to migration?
Yes, so these birds have been migrating and it's part of their ecology. So if you're talking about conservation, you cannot conserve these birds just only in their breeding areas and just only in their wintering areas. That's why I was telling you in the initial presentation that you need to look at concerted action. And the other thing is that even though these birds would be there in a landscape for a short duration of time, they are playing very important service. They are providing very important services. For example, if I have to talk to you about the Amur falcons time their visit to Northeast India, Nagaland and Manipur, where they gather in huge numbers, simply because there is a lot of food available. And what is that food? It is termites. Termites emerge in huge numbers. So in a way, Amur falcons are actually keeping a check on the termites which are emerging. Termites are emerging, which is part of their life cycle. So if it was not for the Amurs, what happens to the termite population? So definitely they have a huge role in the ecosystem. They may be there for a short time, they may be there for the entire 3-month period, but definitely important. So very, very important. Yes, sir.
So one thing that I must appreciate about your presentation, fantastic presentation that the second time I went through it. One thing that I wanted to clear that you talked about the pied cuckoo and the jungle babbler association here. Much of the study have not been conducted in central India landscape, and even focus is not in that direction. And you said that if the population of the jungle babbler is declining, so that is directly going to affect on the population of the pied cuckoo because it is migrating early monsoon and it will stay up to winter, okay, in the central India.
Yes.
So that during this, if we are talking about the breeding ground, have you even observed that there is a conflict between the other species and pied cuckoo? So this kind of the phenomena that has been not absolutely observed here in central India, but to just increase the population of pied cuckoo, what you can say the conservation measures are very much important because what happens, the focus is not there on the conservation of the jungle babbler. Okay, It
Yes,
is
yes.
yes.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So very often we are caught up with conserving charismatic species. So
Yeah.
here is the story where even the pie cuckoo is not a very charismatic species, though we try to
Yeah.
look at it from the point of the folklore and things like that. And here is a case again how one species is dependent on the other, and how climate change or land use is influencing or bringing about these changes.
Yes.
This is very true. It's very interesting. Yes, sir. I totally agree with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you
now
very much, ma'am.
Now I invite Dr. M.F. Jadhav, co-convener and head, Department of Zoology, SN Moore College, Tumsar, to propose vote of thanks. Dr.
Thank you,
Jadhav,
ma'am.
sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay. Honorable Chief Guest and Keynote Speaker of inaugural session, our eminent resource persons of all the technical sessions of two-day National E-Conference on Wildlife Conservation in India, a sustainable approach, jointly organized by 3 different colleges of Gondia Education Society, Gondia, like J.M. Patel College, Bhandara, M.B. Patel College, Sakoli, SN Moore College, Tumsar, in collaboration with Wildlife Trust of India and InvoCare Nature Club, respected principals of all the organizing colleges, convener, organizing secretaries of this conference, and my dear fellow digital participants. Good afternoon to one and all. This is Dr. M.F. Jadhav, Head Department of Zoology, SN Moore College, Tumsar. It is a great honor and proud privilege for me to be called upon to propose a vote of thanks. At the outset, on behalf of all the 4 organizing institutes, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to the chief guest and keynote speaker of the inaugural session, Mr. R.M. Ramanujam, IFS officer, CF and Field Director, Nagzira Navegao Tiger Reserve, Gondia, for guiding and sparing his precious time with us today. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable guidance and accepting our invitation to be a chief guest and keynote speaker for the inaugural function of this conference. I thanks to Dr. Mahendra Raut, Field Officer, for briefing about the role of Wildlife Trust of India in conserving wildlife. I would like to record our deep sense of gratitude and obligation to our eminent resource person of today's first technical session, Mr. Joyce Lewis, Deputy Director, Wildlife Crime Control Division and Comms, Wildlife Trust of India, New Delhi, for his informative and scholarly talk on snares, a tool of hunting, a great threats to wildlife conservation. Thank you so much, sir. We must humbly thanks to our second eminent resource person, Dr. Suresh Kumar, Senior Scientist, Wildlife Institute of India, Dehradun, for very interesting and informative talk on bird migration in India. Thank you so much, sir, for adjusting your busy schedule to share your knowledge and research with us today. I am happy to offer my sincere thanks to Dr. Haresh Trivedi, Principal, M.B. Patel College, Sakoli, for nice welcome address during this inaugural session. My special thanks to Dr. L.P. Nagpurkar, sir, Organizing Secretary of this conference, for his nice introductory remarks during the inaugural session, and also for taking efforts in fixing eminent keynote speaker and resource person for this conference. I would also like to express my thanks to Dr. Veena Mahajan, ma'am, convener of this conference, for conducting the proceedings of inaugural and both the technical sessions so nicely. I must humbly thanks to our chief organizers of conference, Dr. Vikas Dhumne, Principal, J.M. Patel College, Bhandara, Dr. Haresh Trivedi, Principal, M.B. Patel College, Sakoli, Dr. Chetan Kumar Masaram, Principal, SN Moore College, Tumsar, and Dr. Prafulla Bamburkar, sir, Coordinator, Central India Tiger Corridor Recruitment Project, Wildlife Trust of India, for their mentorship, motivation, and dynamic leadership. Their able guidance has always been a source of inspiration for organizing such events. Thanks to all of you, sir, for your kind guidance and support. I am very much thankful to the convener, Dr. Veena Mahajan, Head Department of Zoology, J.M. Patel College, Bandara, Organizing Secretary, Dr. L.P. Nagpurkar, Associate Professor and Program Officer, InvoCare Nature Club, M.B. Patel College, Sakoli, and Joint Secretary, Dr. C.J. Kune, Professor and Head Department of Zoology, M.B. Patel College, Sakoli, for their unstinted support and shaping this conference so nicely. My sincere thanks goes to organizing committee members, Dr. S.W. Duffrey, sir, Coordinator, DBT Star College Scheme, J.M. Patel College, Bandara, Dr. Panikar, IQAC Coordinator, J.M. Patel College, Bandara, Dr. Mahendra Raut, Field Officer, Wildlife Trust of India, Dr. Kanchan Khaparde, Assistant Professor in Zoology, M.B. Patel College, Sakoli, Miss Aarti Salve, Assistant Professor in Zoology, S.N. Moore College, Tumsar, and Dr. J.R. Kirsan, Assistant Professor in Zoology, J.M. Patel College, Bhandara, for their enormous support and kind cooperation in organizing this event. And finally, though in last but most important, a very, very big thanks to all my dear fellow participants, especially teachers and my dear students and some participants from other fields for your kind presence, because without your participation, this conference might not have been possible. So thanks for that. Once again, we thank each and everyone for being with us on this occasion. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Over to you, ma'am. Mahajan, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you once again, all of you. I think, hello, Panikar, sir. Program conclude kare, sir, yahan pe. I declare the program is conclude here.
Okay.